Can you guys hear me okay in there?
Yes, we can hear Fred.
Perfect. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Okay, it is 1:30, so we'll get started. Before we start the formal part of our meeting, I would like to acknowledge the loss of two of our beloved community members and the tragedy at the Long Beach Airport. Former MLA Gerard Johnson passed earlier this month after a battle with a long illness. He served as MLA for the Alberni riding from 1988 to 2001. He was a jeweler by profession, and he was the owner of Johnson Jewelers and Watch Repair. Johnson was also a lifetime member of the Port Alberni Toy Run. For more than 20 years, he dressed as Santa and led the procession of motorcycles through the streets of Port Alberni. Councillor John Douglas passed away suddenly on July the 12th. John was a dedicated paramedic, public servant, and community leader who made a lasting impact on Port Alberni. From his early days as a chef and lifeguard to his later roles as city councilor and mayor, John's unwavering commitment to public service, social planning, and community upliftment was evident in all aspects of his life. Known for his boundless generosity, passion for volunteerism, and dedication to helping those in need, John's legacy of compassion and service will continue to inspire all of us who knew him. John, you will be missed. Last week, a small plane crashed on the runway at the Long Beach Airport. Sadly, there were 2 fatalities and 1 occupant with serious injuries. We extend our gratitude to the first responders who acted swiftly and professionally at the scene of the accident. Our hearts go out to the families and loved ones of those affected by this tragic event. On behalf of the Alberni Quayquot Regional District Board, I would like to offer our deepest condolences to the families and friends of Gerard Johnson and John Douglas. I would now like to ask that we take a moment of silence to remember those who we have lost. Thank you, everyone. I would like to call the July 24th Board of Directors meeting to order. I'd like to recognize we're conducting this meeting on the unceded territories of the Shuswap First Nations, and we're grateful for the opportunity to do so. We also have directors calling in from other territories, and we'd like to acknowledge those nations and express our gratitude and our respect. A notice to attendees and delegates that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube and on the Regional District website. If you're watching this meeting, please send any questions or comments to responses@acrd.ec.ca, and we will discuss those at the end of the meeting. And I apologize to everyone. I forgot to do introductions at our committee meeting this morning, so I won't forget it now. We'll start with introductions. I'm Debbie Haggard. I'm a counselor for the city of Port Alberni and appointed representative to the Alberni Quequot Regional District Board and vice chair of the board. So we'll go this way today.
Good afternoon, Heather Zender, Manager of Administrative Services.
Good afternoon, Aklama Penny Cote. I'm the Alberni Quequot Regional Director for Sprout Lake.
Good afternoon. I am Mike Sparrow, I'm the Regional Director for Cherry Creek.
Good afternoon. My name is Mariah Coots. I'm a representative for the Chuckles at Tribe Government. Thank you. Sure.
Afternoon, Kirsten Johnson for the Toquat Nation.
Hi, I'm Daniel Sion, the CAO for the ACRD.
Good afternoon, Cynthia Dick, General Manager of Administrative Services.
Good afternoon, Mike Hurd, General Manager of Planning and Development.
Good afternoon, Alex Dyer, Planning Manager with the ACRD.
Thank you. And do we have directors calling in online? So as I call your name, I would ask that you please introduce yourself. Director Steer.
Yes, good afternoon, Director Steer, appointed director from the District of Tofino.
Director Siga.
Veda Siga, Director for Area C.
Director Boyko.
Director Boyko for Beaufort. Thank you.
Director Roth.
Good afternoon, Susan Roth. I represent the best interests of the people of Beaver Creek.
Director Beckett.
Good afternoon, Bob Beckett, representing Area A, Banfield.
Director McEwen.
Good afternoon, Marilyn McEwen, Mayor of Ucluelet.
Director Mastrangelo.
Good afternoon, Lavana Mastrangelo, Director representing Ucluelet First Nation, Ucluelet. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Next, we have an agenda in front of us. Is there any additions from directors? Is there any additions from the corporate office?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Could I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Oh, I'm sorry, Director Minions. Did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I'm just not on camera today, but I'm here as well. Shari Minions, Mayor for the City of Port Alberni.
I'm sorry, Shari, you're right in the corner. I didn't see your name. So we need a motion to approve the agenda as presented, moved by Director Coots, second by Director Sparrow. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Is there any declarations or conflicts of interest? Oh, Director Roth?
Yes, I have one with item 91I, rezoning application 24001. We share a property line.
And that's for 6467 Walker Road. Thank you. Director Minions, are you in conflict with item D, 9D?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. Next is the adoption of minutes from our Board of Directors meeting dated June 26, 2024. Is there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I get a motion that the minutes of the Board of Directors meeting held on June 26, 2024 be adopted. Moved by Director Johnson, second by Director Cote. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. So we have petitions, delegations, and presentations. We have a presentation from Ron Merck, who is co-chair of the Port Alberni Community Action Team, presenting the blueprint of transformative strategies for the toxic drug crisis catastrophe, and he's here being supported by the other co-chair, Ellen Fruit. Come on up, Ron. And just a reminder, Ron, that you do have 10 minutes. I'm aware that you would be taking longer than that. So after the 10-minute mark, I'll stop you and we'll have to do a resolution to allow you to keep talking. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thanks very much for having me today. It's been a while since I was here the last time. I think it's about a year and a half. So it's great to give you a bit of an update. So part of my opportunity with you today is to answer questions you might have. A lot of things have happened in the last year and a half. For instance, decriminalization happened in the province and we backstepped from that. So you may have questions on those kinds of issues, harm reduction, stigma, all kinds of things associated with the toxic drug crisis. I'm going to start off today and give you some good news. We got notice this week that there is an RFP out for 6 to 8 stabilization beds in Port Alberni. And I want to thank, there's lots of people sitting here at this table, also with the Port Alberni Council, various other groups in the city that have been working very diligently to make that happen. So a lot of gratitude and thanks for that work that's happened. So just to start off, my partner in crime, of course, Ellen, she's here to jump in when I forget to say something or tell you something that's important. So thank you, Ellen, for that. I wanted to talk a little bit today about our blueprint strategy. This came out of the following slide, which I'll just put up for you and you'll understand why. That's the one I wanted. So last year, this is the death rate for Alberni-Clayoquot. And last year, you can see we hit 102.8 per 100,000 people. And I have to say, excluding the second place city, which was Hope, and has a very small population and statistically is not kind of relevant, we would be second place in the province. Worst death rate. The only one that exceeds us would be the downtown east side. Okay, so since my last time here, things haven't really gotten better. It's not that we haven't been doing stuff, so that's important to acknowledge. A lot of stuff has happened, but for lots of reasons, we have a very difficult situation in the Alberni-Clayoquot area. So here's some stats that put things in perspective and tell you what's going on. So I can tell you 69% of people are between the ages of 30 and 59. 71% are men. So there's a huge problem with the male side of the demographics, people dying. The method used, and so a lot of people have the misimpression it has to do with injections. It's not. 68% of people inhale the drugs. Okay. Very few people now inject. Location is very important. You can see that on these stats here, almost 50% are in private residences. And so there's this idea, which is not correct, that it's the marginalized and visible minorities in the city or our communities that are affected mostly. It's not. Okay. So we have a huge demographic of people that are dying that are what I would say men, probably married with families working. We would have referred to those as in the past, in the 1950s and 60s, with alcohol, they were functional alcoholics. Same thing holds true in with the toxic drug crisis. The biggest problem, of course, is fentanyl, but there's some other huge problems, meth and benzodiazepines that affect us, the toxic drug situation as well. Interestingly enough, and this stat comes out, so there's one health authority that has decreased, whereas the rest of the health authorities all increased in the period that I took this data from. And the one health authority that decreased was Fraser. So if I was really interested in wanting to figure something out, I would look at Fraser and figure out what they're doing. So, and the last point I want to point out is that there's this rumor that diversion happens. So we have regulated safe supply, very small trial in the province. It affects a number of communities. We don't have it in Port Alberni necessarily, but other communities across the island do. But there's this rumor that somehow that regulated safe supply gets diverted and sold off. But the coroner report is very specific, and it says that only less than 3% of deaths detect hydromorphine, which is the regulated safe supply. So that's a rumor, and I'm hoping to put it to bed. So we came up, because of the poor results, we had to think out of the box in the community action team. We came up with what we call blueprint. Resilience Unveiled, blueprint extraordinary measures that we could do to solve it. It was crafted from the input of all kinds of people and organizations, including the Sechot First Nations, because you probably have heard their strategic plan as well. And we worked hand in hand with Sechot First Nations to develop ours as well as help them with theirs. It's a comprehensive document. I won't say more than that because you've been given the report. I would point out to you that it has more than 300 recommendations, 323 to be exact. And there are recommendations that can be used by individuals, people like yourselves who represent your constituents. It also is an educational document. If you read through this document, you will have all the facts you need to understand the toxic drug crisis and all the solutions that need to happen in order to solve it. So if I were an elected representative, this would be my Bible document I would use because it'll give you all the facts you need when somebody in your constituency asks you questions about the toxic drug crisis. It can be used by an organization such as the regional board. There's a huge number of recommendations in here that the regional board could look at that you could impact or influence. You people are influencers. You might not be able to actually create a specific thing, but you have influence with senior government, no less than exactly what I talked about earlier with that great announcement of stabilization beds. If it weren't for the work of the influence that people sit at this table and other tables, that would never have happened. So that's the way to use this document. Take it away, look at the recommendations. You want to maybe look at it from a regional district perspective and look at, there's a huge host of, for instance, recommendations in it that talk about prevention at the schools levels for youth, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all things that we could do on a regional district perspective. And as I said, you could also use it as your personal Bible and list of recommendations you might want to accept. Knowledge is power, and the more you understand this document and the problems that drive the toxic drug crisis, the better you represent your constituents, and also the more opportunities we have to make direct change. Here are just some of the things that are touched in. I won't go through them all, but I would want to mention that there's a host of Indigenous support items in the recommendations. We talk about unregulated supply toxicity, and we touch on everything from housing, poverty, government resolve, down to the criminal justice reform system, decriminalization, harm reduction, stigma reduction, et cetera, et cetera. It's all in this document. The three highest priorities that we would see out of the document, not saying that you might see them different, but the ones that we've been working on is a regulated safe supply that could be applied for residences in the Alberni-Clayoquot area. Timely, free, and low barrier access to recovery resources, and that's almost a tick box now with the stabilization aid RFP that's out. We're on the way of maybe solving that. And then probably the other most significant one for us is homelessness. If we could address homelessness in the community, I think we'd make a huge step. That would be a huge step both for First Nations, Indigenous people, but also for all of the marginalized people that are on the street. I can tell you now that most of those people have mental health issues, and that results in drug toxicity issues, and none of that stops without a home, a bed to put your head every night. So homelessness is a big deal. Okay, and I'm going to ask Ellen, like there's a couple of, we're close to 10 minutes. So is there anything you can think of that we would ask?
Hi, everybody. So we know that some of you go to UBCM and attend, and we would ask that you take this message forward, lobby whomever you can, health, other MLAs, have those conversations about how serious it is. lobby for in-community services. Don't ask us to send people out of community. Let's bring treatment home to our own community. And I think that RFP just issued by Island Health does address that to a certain degree. The challenge is that with BC Housing, I delivered a housing project. It took 5 years. And they do have RFPQ, which means pre-qualifications out there right now. One closes in September, the other in November. One is for a supportive housing and the other is long-term housing for women. So in the grand scheme of things, how that works is we pre-qualify, we get on a list for 3 years, and then they send an RFP out, and then you quote, and then they review. And quite frankly, I feel no confidence in any speed in the process. I can't imagine that anybody would be chosen to deliver housing until December of 2025 at the earliest. And we have a critical issue here in our community now. We witnessed, the evacuation of a building with a lot of people who live marginalized. It was their home nonetheless, many with very, very high substance use disorders. Who went in some cases, A1 is one of the places, and they've all been kicked out. Guess what? Because their behavior is not acceptable. So what we need to learn and understand is that harm reduction is not how we define harm reduction. Harm reduction is helping somebody live their life in the best way possible. And if that means that they're going to continue to use substances, then we have to help them be safe when we do that. And that speaks to the regulated supply, I think, right? I'm eternally grateful to my partner here, Ron. He's the one that really drives everything, and I just kind of come along and say, oh, you forgot to say one word. But we do count on, I mean, what could we do here? Maybe you have some land that would be devoted to building a facility, some kind of treatment facility. Is there something available? Is it a piece of parkland that you have? Or could we having conversations about crown land or with the land, what is it, the land, ALR, agricultural land reserve, but lobbying and supporting those kinds of things. That's a big long term, but nonetheless, it's something actually that the regional district can do, is to identify those kinds of opportunities. And we have lots of people in the community who want to provide treatment and to deliver facilities. So is create those partnerships, forge the partnerships, and let's all work together. Really, that's all.
I will mention one last thing before I turn the PowerPoint off. I'm a member of the Complex Housing Policy Committee for the provincial government. So my next thing I would like to see Port Alberni achieve is the Complex Housing Initiative. Complex housing is defined by the province's housing that is designed for the people that are most marginalized and most unable to sustain normal housing. So it's absolutely low or no barrier housing and all the supports that go with that. So the nearest initiative that the government has approved is in Nanaimo at this point. No hope is it rolls out. I've been on that committee for the last 2.5 years, and the province is slowly pushing it out. More pressure we get from our own backyard, the better or chances are that we'll be able to get a complex housing initiative over here. So I'm open to questions. Anything about the toxic drug crisis, this is your chance to ask them.
Thank you, Ron and Ellen. It's always great to get those updated numbers. Unfortunately, they're not good numbers. Ron, can I ask you to speak to the International Overdose Awareness Day event?
Yeah, so the Community Action Team is hosting the International Overdose Day on, it's actually officially August 31st. We actually have 2 days set aside. The first day is Friday, the August 30th at the Barclay Hotel between 10 o'clock and 2. And it's going to be a huge event. We've got major speakers coming in. 2 major key speakers. We have the leader of the Green Party, who will be a keynote speaker for us. She has some experience with family, with toxic drugs. And we have another great speaker who has lived experience as well. And then there's a host of service providers who'll be there with displays, tables, and we'll have breakout rooms for conversations on all subjects related to the toxic drug crisis. The next day is going to be down at the, on Fourth Avenue. And we've got the parking lot at the, yeah, it's just by Drug Fleet Park, and we're gonna have, there's a band I think we're gonna have down there. We're gonna provide, so that's more intended for the marginalized community. We're trying to bring them together, connect them up with resources and so forth. So that's gonna be International Overdose Day in Pearl Bernie this year. It's gonna be huge. Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Thank you, Ron. I just want to point out to the directors, this is not a city problem. It's not just a regional district problem. It is a provincial issue. It is a national issue, and it's an international issue. At every community, there is an opioid crisis that we have to deal with. And I think every one of us is a family member, our friend, or we know someone who has been affected by this crisis. So we need to work together to help work on it. Did anyone have any other questions for Ron? Dr. Coots.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair, in regards to that, the event that is going on, how would one get in contact to look into doing some kinds of donations for you guys, whether that be food, snacks, water?
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. So you can either get a hold of me, or you can get a hold of our coordinator, and I can provide that information. Yeah, that'd be great. We had a grant that was given to us by the Hupechesed First Nation, and they've been awesome supporters for us. So yeah, but anything helps, everything helps. So thanks for asking that. Yeah, I just mentioned, to follow up on what Deb mentioned, we know that there are approximately 125,000 British Columbians that have severe opiate disorder. So think about that for a second. We also know that 1 in 5 people in British Columbia have been impacted by the crisis. Either they know a family member or they are directly involved. So.
Director Coots, I just want to answer your question also to donations. We have 3 people who are part of the committee who do outreach work, and they are in the community every day, and they would have need of water, cookies, snacks, healthy snacks for sure. That's something that we always need. We don't really have a budget for stuff like that, so that would be greatly appreciated. Yeah.
You should also mention that those 3 peer workers, we have them financed until the end of the year, December, and then I have no idea where we're getting the money for 2025. I just don't know at this point, but anyway. So if anybody knows of grants that are available, it would be useful. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Yes, thank you for the grant that we are getting from you guys, ACRD. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to make a couple suggestions, if I may. At the end of each year, our chair appoints directors to different committees. I was wondering if at that time, if we could look at appointing a director to sit on the Community Action Team table. There is a city representative, or there will be, and maybe look at having regional district directors sit on the table.
Okay.
And that way they can bring back information and events on what you're doing too.
Well, we'd love that. Thank you. If that could happen, that would be excellent.
Yeah, the more support you can get, the better.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to suggest, Daniel, I know you meet with the CEO of the city on a regular basis. If the 2 of you could maybe talk about if you could have a committee or a small subcommittee, go through the information and see if there's something that the city and the regional district can perhaps work on together and try and get some of those things knocked off.
One of the biggest thing and the simplest thing, frankly, is education. I don't know what kind of material you send out to ACRD people in the ACRD, but education around harm reduction and stigma and the toxic drug crisis itself, even if we had just a little space in those sort of documents, it could make a big difference. So, and simple.
Yeah, we do issue an around the region printed notice on a regular basis. So that's something we can look at. And then in discussions with regional directors, when their newsletters go out, that's something we could flag.
Yeah.
Director Cote.
Thank you. I just wondered if we had any kind of links on our website at the regional district to the Community Action Team website as well for information for people if they're looking for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Terrific. Thank you so much, Ron and Ellen, for coming here
Thank you.
today. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next on the agenda, we have correspondence for action. First item is request for letter of support. The Alberni Valley Makerspace requesting letter of support regarding an application to Clean BC Plastics Action Fund. And Michael Moore is here today to show us some things that look at making. Would you like to come up and speak, Michael, to it quickly?
Thank you. I know that a letter for or support doesn't really line me up for speaking, but figured if I'm asking you guys for something, I should at least be here to answer any questions that anybody might have. So the Alberni Valley Makerspace is applying to Clean BC's Plastics Action grant funding. This is a source of funding that is open to organizations to try to combat plastic waste in different sectors across multiple different regions. We're looking at the post-consumer plastic waste. So this is plastic waste that enters our system, whether or not it's through the recycling depot or other streams or avenues that we see it. BC, we're fortunate enough, a lot of plastic waste is actually recycled, but a lot of it still is not. And our goal is to try to limit the amount of plastic waste that leaves the valley. So this is, you can take and check it out and pass it down. But some of these are examples of pieces that we've created. So these are made from shampoo bottles, water bottles, bottle caps, and things like that. I know that in our coastal communities, that there is a lot of ocean plastic waste that is being produced and picked up and cleaned up there. Our goal at the Makerspace is to prove that we can do it with the accessible plastics that we have access to immediately. And then once we have proven that we can do it with that, then is when you expand your abilities and your knowledge. So you eat the elephant one bite at a time. We combat plastic through one piece at a time. So these parts and components here are just small little doodads. It makes it easy for me to travel with, but you know, we want to be able to eventually turn some of these products into things like 2x4s, flat stock material for building, and then other things that can be reused within our community. So we're not shipping out our plastic waste. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Michael? Director Sparrow.
Thank you. Looking at the pieces you got there, do you use a plastic injection mold machine to make them, or how do you put them together?
Yes. So some of the products that are being passed around and for our online participants, there's soap dishes, a comb, some beads, buttons, you know, small stuff. But yes, we do use a plastic injection molder. The Alberni Valley Makerspace is funded through its membership and generous grant made contributions from the ACRD. Thank you very much. But we've taken our member funds, purchased an injection molder, molds, commercial shredder, and other products.
So have you ever contacted a commercial person to actually, if you want to make parts of them through your injection molding machines?
Well, we wouldn't want to. We don't want to give away the ins and outs of the corporate world, but we are definitely looking to expand our scope from just soap dishes and rings into more commercial aspects. We have several people that are very interested in the process, and then part of our grant proposal is an R&D phase where we develop and build mold making capabilities, so that we will be able to manufacture custom made molds for commercial enterprises.
Thank you. We have a possible motion, and would anybody like to make this motion? Director Cote?
Do you want it read out? I would make the motion that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors provide a letter of support to the Alberni Valley Makerspace regarding an application to Clean BC Plastic Action Fund.
Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. And thank you very much, Michael, and good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
Next is another letter, request for a letter of support for the Hawaiian First Nations is requesting a letter of support regarding an application to the British Columbia Community Workforce Response Grant. And we have a possible motion on the agenda. Would anybody like to make this motion? Director Beckett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to make the motion that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors provides a letter of support to the Hawaiian First Nation supporting their grant application to the British Columbia Community Workforce Response Grant to deliver a wildfire crew member training program in Anakla during October in partnership with North Island College.
Moved by Director Beckett, seconded by Director McEwen. Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Request for another letter of support. The Port Alberni Air Quality Council requesting letter to the Ministry of Forest. And we have a possible motion on the agenda. Would anyone like to make this motion or any questions or comments? Director Sparrow?
I'll make the motion that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors provide a letter to the Ministry of Forest discouraging /wild burning in populated areas. Thank you.
Moved by Director Sparrow, seconded by Director Sega. Director Boyko, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just got a couple of questions about this because it's a very broad statement that the Air Quality Council is requesting here. What are they calling a populated area? Are they assuming that the entire Alberni Clayoquot Regional District is a populated area? Because that's how this thing reads. Slash is used to clear land, and obviously they provided 6 examples of what else slash can be used for, but with the increasing population that everyone is looking at coming into Canada and the high levels of immigration and increased housing, there will be a lot more land clearing everywhere in Canada, including the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District. Some of the methods they provided are not really the most feasible and are quite cost prohibitive. What other things can be done besides burning? But my big thing is, are we asking to put this to every part of the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District or just populated areas? Because it seems very broad and confusing. Thank you.
Any staff member know more details or more information? Can we go back to them for more detailed information? Does that work for you, Director Boyko? Perfect, thank you. So we'll put this on the agenda for the next meeting. Pardon me?
Just table the motion.
Table the motion, perfect. Okay, correspondence for information. Again, a letter from Port Alberni Air Quality Council, letter regarding permit PA 1863 of Catalyst Paper. Island Rail Corporation, a joint venture partnership with Western Marine Express. Clayoquot Biosphere Trust 2023 Annual Report. District of Saanich BCM Resolution, BC Hydro Projects. Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy, Amendment of Spheres and Concurrent Jurisdiction, Environment and Wildlife Regulation. Ministry of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship, New BC Coastal Marine Strategy. Environmental Assessment Office, Legislative Review of Environmental Assessment Act 2018. Water Finance Research Foundation, new report on water main break rates in US and Canada. And I'll go to Director Boyko.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to bring out item H, hotel, for discussion. I've read this and I've researched this foundation in the background here, but to me, this seems like junk mail from an American lobbying firm that's being sent to the chair and basically probably went to every chair and every mayor across North America. I don't think we should be listening to US lobbying firms based out of Colorado. And we should be looking at what is actually promoted within Canada and from our own government. Thank you. So I'd like to take it out totally, because that's what I feel like this is.
Anyone else like to pull anything out for discussion? Director Sparrow.
I'll put out H, but for a different reason, because we know the water lines around here are old, which it says here, usually AC lines end their lifespan, and everything in Cherry Creek doesn't have a water system, but I know the condition of the water lines, and I know how Beaver Creek was before they came over to the ACRD, that it is a big problem, and the lines are deteriorating until you can change over to Loop Route, which has a longer lifespan. So although it may be a US study, it may be relevant in the terms of what we can face in the future regarding water lines, and probably the city the same way with their water lines. They are deteriorating faster than we can actually replace them effectively without doing cost upgrades. So thank you.
I was just in Calgary at FCM in June and had a water main break. Director Roth.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to confirm that Beaver Creek has a capital replacement program for our water mains. And the last report that I read, our water mains are in good condition. And although they need replacement, it's an ongoing process and we're doing it all the time. We may have some or quite a lot of our water mains that have asbestos, but from what I understand, that doesn't affect you whenever you drink it. It's only an airborne problem. So when I read this too about the report, I thought it doesn't really apply to the way Canada addresses water mains and drinking water, because we've been on this for a lot of years and it feels like we're way ahead. Thank you.
Any other comments? Dr. Cote.
Thank you. So I'd like to pull E, Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy. So I'm not sure what the city of Port Alberni is looking at for single-use plastic waste prevention. And I'm not sure what the regional district has in our policies or bylaws that would restrict any type of use of or single-use plastics. So do we have any kind of policy or any intention of having any kind of policy? I know that the BC government is wanting all bags, reusable bags, paper, whatever, to be charged at either 25 cents for a paper bag kind of thing and at $2 for a recycled bag. So just not sure where we stand as a regional district. Thank you.
I'm not aware of any bylaw that we have in place that restricts any of the use along those lines. It's not an area that we have explored or been directed to explore. I would have to refer to Paulo. He is online, and that is a question that we could answer in terms of how we handle the various plastics, single use and other, that end up in our system. Paulo?
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Director Cote's question, there's no specific policy on the restriction of single-use plastics. However, as legislation comes online, we introduce restrictions on what we received out of the landfill. We obviously have waste diversion options for different residential materials and some of the commercial materials. What this one is more about is providing that authority on a couple of things. Provides authority for municipalities to enact bylaws to restrict uses of these single-use plastics without having to go for permission with the province. Previously, that wasn't a thing you could do. Now they can. So that's one of that concurrent jurisdiction piece that you're looking at. The other piece is again, not specific to policy, but the regional district is able to provide this information as waste education. We provide it through our social media platforms. And where businesses are involved, this is the crux of where a lot of the legislation comes from. It's empowering the businesses to restrict that use, provide the incentive for people to use different materials, but there's no specific policy in place, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, last term, Director Cote, the city was looking at a bylaw prohibiting the use of single-use plastics, but it's a bylaw that we could not possibly enforce with one or two bylaw officers. So we felt it best that if the market just do it on its own, and I feel that the businesses in our community are doing it on their own because you can't get a bag anywhere. Go ahead.
I have another one, that would be Environmental Assessment Office, that's G on page 96, 97. So is the regional district staff working on this on the review and preparation of the Act, Environmental Assessment Act, as it's being reviewed? Thank you.
I do not believe that's a project we're working on.
Because of water, flood, and drought situations, I'm wondering if maybe this might be something that we might like to take a look at in the future. Thank you.
We certainly review documents that are referred to us and provide comment and bring them forward, but we're not actively part of a committee or doing anything on this line. Not to say we're not working on environmental issues or climate change in different ways. We have a significant number of projects on the go, just not this one specifically.
Thank you. So in our package here, it says that it's the review preparation that's happening right now, that the act review will be 2025. So I guess I'm just doing a heads up that I'd really like us to participate in this. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Cote. Director Roth, you had your hand up, but now it's put down. Did you have any comments or questions?
I was just going to comment about the bag issue, and there are a couple grocery stores in town that are now charging $2. And I looked around town to see if I could find something that can fit into my purse. And today I received 5 washable bags and they work really well, but I couldn't find them in town. I had to order them through Amazon. Just wanted to let everybody know.
Thank you.
Maybe it's something that the, entrepreneurs can get on to.
Director Cote?
Thank you. I'd also like to pull out the Clayoquot Biosphere Trust, and wonderful report. I just wanted to highlight that. I don't know if we send thank you letters saying great report, but it'd be good for them to hear back that, we appreciate the information that they're providing us. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else? See no more questions or comments. Could I motion that the Board of Directors receive items A through H for information? Moved by Director Cote, second by Director Johnson. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is request for decisions and bylaws. First is appointment of election officers for the 2024 Banfield Sewer Referendum. Could I get Cynthia Dick, General Manager of Administrative Services, to speak on this, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So this is the first of 3 RFDs that will be regarding the Banfield Sewer Referendum. And you may recall that on November 23rd, 2022, the Board of Directors passed a motion that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors support proceeding with a service ascent process for the implementation of a liquid waste connection service for the community of Banfield. So for the purpose of conducting elections and referendums, local governments must appoint a chief election officer and deputy chief election officer to make sure that the election runs in accordance with the Local Government Act and Community Charter, and the referendum costs will be covered through grant funding provided for the project.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments for Cynthia? Seeing none, Director Beckett, did you wish to make the motion?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd make the motion that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors appoint Cynthia Dick the position of Chief Election Officer and Heather Zinner to the position of Deputy Chief Election Officer for the purposes of organizing and conducting the Banfield Sewer Referendum in East and West Banfield in the fall of 2024.
Moved by Director Beckett, second by Director Coots. Dr. Boyko, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I got 3 questions. When this first came up, I was listening to the meetings and it was, the cost was $10,000 for the referendums and now it's gone up to $16,000. So I just wonder how that changed in 6 months. Second question is, the map looks really good. You got East Banfield, West Banfield, but a little portion at the bottom, South Banfield is not in there as well. So if you're not in there, you're not going to be connected. Is that the assumption? And third question is, if this does not pass, there's been lots of discussions about having septic inspections in Banfield to make sure people are incoherent in, how do you want to say this? Have a properly approved septic system that is functioning and have inspections that you can anonymously complain about your neighbors if this does not go through. So last meeting, there was about an hour and a half discussion with Island Health about how to complain on your neighbor's septic system. So is the plan to have this septic inspections apply to other regional areas? Because it is quite, what do you want to say, all encompassing in the, I don't want to say threat, but in the ability to complain on your neighbors and get their septic system inspected. Thank you.
Terry, could I get you to answer the first question, please, regarding the amount of cost?
Yeah, for sure. So we did some updated costs and to be honest, we weren't really thinking about the fact that we're doing these referendums in November. And the reality is if they're open from 8 to 8, it's not realistic to ask staff to be driving before and after. So we had to add some overnight costs, including hotels. We had also had the board decide not to choose to do just one advance voting opportunity. So this is election official staff going down 3 times to Banfield, 2 nights each time, including meals, to conduct this referendum. It may be lower if we're able to find some staff down in the Banfield area to support that, but we haven't got to that point yet. Jenny Brunn is not here today, so I can talk a little bit about the Island Health component of it. And like what was presented at that last open house are not new rules. Those are the existing rules. It's just an education of the rules. Is my understanding from Jenny. We can't ask her to bring back a further report, but all those powers of complaining about your neighbor and all those things exist now. It's just not being used, I guess. If there's something in your area that should be reported, there is an option to report that. The South Long Beach area, South Banfield Road area, it was made apparent during the community engagement sessions that a lot of those people have just recently, like in the last 2 years, put in septic fields. And so the thought was that including them in the service area was likely, they were going to be no votes because they've put some substantial infrastructure at their own cost in. And so it was a decision made at that time to exclude them from that service area. People can always petition to be added into a service area after a service is established, but the boundary lines were drawn based on the feedback received from the community, and that section was basically a no. I think that answers all 3 of your questions.
Thank you very much, Terry, and thanks for clarifying.
Thank you, Terry. Any other questions, Director Sparrow?
Thank you. I'm gonna say what Terry said was about the septic fields. You always had that possibility of living downstream, literally, where I used to live. You can sometimes get a whiff of things are going wrong. You can kind of back trace it, but then if they say it's not me, then you can get on health. They put a dye in and it shows who it's a problem area. So it's been around for 30, 40 years. So nothing new, but it needs to be done sometimes.
Director Cote.
Thank you. When I first started doing the water testing at Sprout Lake, I did get the regional district to buy dye so that, and when I put my newsletter out, usually I put in there that we're doing water testing and that there is dye available here at the regional district, and I believe there is still. So free, all you have to do is come in and ask for a sample so that you could test your septic. Thanks. So I think that's still here.
Thank you, Director Beckett.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate and thank Director Boyko for those questions with respect to the whether it's VHA for residential or whether it is Minister of the Environment provincially for commercial septic systems. Terry was absolutely right. In Jenny's absence today, those subjects were covered in detail at our last staff meeting. It was a virtual meeting, and I thought Jenny did an excellent job identifying the process of what VHA's role is, and as Terry has identified and others, these requirements and legislation have existed for years, and the process of identifying someone who may not be in compliance or a problematic system is exactly as Terry identified. It's based on a complaint. So I just wanted to reiterate that. I thought staff did an excellent job at that last virtual presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Beckett. If there's no more questions or comments, I'd like to call for the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next, request for decision bylaw number E1065 East Banfield Sewer Collection System, establishing bylaw, and bylaw number F1163 East Banfield Sewer Collection System Loan Authorization Bylaw. And I have both Cynthia and Terry down to talk about this. So who would like to go first? Cynthia's going to go first. Thank you.
So again, this is the second RFD, and as was mentioned previously, there has been a number of community engagement sessions, including surveys, open house, and the community engagement will continue, as well as the Let's Connect page. So the first will be the establishing bylaw, which just is the description of the service, define the service boundary area, service participants, method of cost recovery, and the maximum amount that may be requisitioned annually. And one thing that was mentioned was the different service areas, and why we separated it was east and west, and we didn't want to limit on if one area wanted to proceed and the other didn't, that the other one still could if the referendum passes. Maybe I'll just ask Terry to speak to a bit of the financial in the loan authorization bylaw. But one thing I do want to mention is that if the bylaws do have the 3 readings, that we will forward to the Inspector of Municipalities for approval, and that can take 4 to 6 weeks. And once we receive approval, the election officials must proceed with a referendum within 80 days, and we are anticipating that that will be in mid-November. Also wanted to note that we have a separate report that will be coming to the Board of Directors for discussion in August, and that will be for the referendum questions.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Terry.
Great, thank you. This one's a little bit of an interesting one. We kind of took what the community was willing to pay and worked our way backwards. So through the community engagement, the consensus or the vibe was that we're willing to pay about $1,500 per year for borrowing costs, and then there'll be about $1,500 per year for operating costs. So that means these projects, both East and West Banfield, if they proceed, are going to be heavily reliant upon grant funding. And the amount of grant funding is going to be different on each side. But basically, the homeowner will pay approximately $1,500 per year as a parcel tax for the construction of the network, and then $1,500 worth of user or operating fees. This would be over a 20-year term for borrowing, but I don't actually think we would be recommending dropping that $1,500 parcel tax off to zero at the end, because obviously you're then 20 years into the life of the infrastructure and at some point are going to need to replace it. So yeah, a little bit of a different kind of financial method on this one. And if we do not receive grant funding within the 5 years, and then we are not able to proceed with the construction, and we would have to go back to the public for another establishing bylaw and referendum in order to proceed. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Terry. Director Boyko.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick note or a question. If this gets built and approved and goes on, how long will people have to take before they are forced to connect to it? And one thing that's not noted is the actual cost for the individual homeowner to connect to the pressurized system, which could be upwards of $30,000-$40,000. But is there a timeline that's expected between the pipe going in and everybody being forced to connect to it? Thank you.
No, there's not a connection deadline. You will be paying the $1,500 parcel tax, whether you're connected or not. All parcels that are within the service area will be paying that $1,500. I don't know off the top of my head what the individual homeowner cost is. I will look at it while we're still chatting here, but I do know it's all built into the FAQ questions that are on the Let's Connect page and will be part of the further engagement that occurs this fall. And it has been detailed out for the homeowners as part of the study that's been done by Urban Systems.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Director Beckett.
Thank you. Again, I'll acknowledge Director Boyko's question and the importance of that question. I'm going to speak to that in just a second. I'm going to tie it into a comment that Cynthia made regarding the questions that will form the referendum, what the questions will be on the referendum that folks will be voting on. And as Cynthia mentioned, this will be brought to the board at our August meeting. They will also be discussed at the Bamfield Community Services Committee, and they will be shared and distributed with the Bamfield Community Affairs Executive as well. So I wanted to identify and address that. And getting back to the comment on costs, Jenny and I did correspond this week, and I said, and my ask was that we be really, really clear as to what those costs would look like, moving forward, so that there was full transparency on that. So I'm satisfied that we are moving in the right direction. Thank you. Moving in the right direction with respect to the process, the information, and the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Beckett. Director Boyko.
Thank you, Chair. Just to save Terry some time, the costs were $25,000 for people on the low side of the road and 11,000 people on the north side, upper side of the road to connect to it. So that'd be individual costs per property to connect to this. And that's an estimate from Franker Backhoeing in May of this year. Thank you.
Thank you for that. If there's no other questions or comments, I was wondering if Director Beckett, if you'd like to start making the motions.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd start with that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District, the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors gives first reading to the bylaw cited as East Bamfield Sewer Collection System Service Establishment Bylaw number E1065 2024, 2024.
Moved by Director Beckett, second by Director Sparrow. Final questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead.
Move second reading.
Moved by Director Beckett, second by Director Johnson. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead.
Move third reading.
Moved by Director Beckett, seconded by Director Coots. Final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead.
That the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors gives first reading to bylaw cited at East Bamfield Sewer Loan Authorization Bylaw number F1163, 2024.
Moved by Director Beckett, second by Director Coots. Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead.
Move second reading.
Moved by Director Beckett, second by Director Johnson. Questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead.
And finally, move third reading.
Moved by Director Beckett, second by Director Cote. Final questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is request for decision bylaw number E1066 West Banfield Sewer Collection System establishing bylaw and bylaw number F1164 West Banfield Sewer Collection System Loan Authorization Bylaw. Cynthia and Terry, please go ahead.
Yes, so this is basically all of the same information from the last RFD, only this is for the West Banfield. And the other noted differences would be in the loan authorization bylaw in the cost, because it was built around that 1,500. So it would be more for the loan and as well as the grant funding.
Did you have anything to add, Terry?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, Director Beckett, she wishes to start reading the motions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That the Alberni Clayoquot Regional Board of Directors gives first reading to bylaw cited as West Banfield Sewer Collection System Service Establishment Bylaw number E1066, 2024.
Moved by Director Beckett, seconded by Director Johnson. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead.
That the move second reading.
Moved by Director Beckett, seconded by Director Johnson. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead, Director Beckett.
And move third reading.
Moved by Director Beckett, seconded by Director Sparrow. Final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead.
That the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors gives first reading to bylaw cited as West Banfield Sewer Loan Authorization Bylaw number F1164, 2024.
Moved by Director Beckett, seconded by Director Coots. Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead.
Move second reading.
Moved by Director Beckett, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead.
And move third reading.
Moved by Director Beckett, seconded by Director Sparrow. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. That was third reading, right? Okay. Okay, next request for decision, the CMHC Housing Accelerator Fund. And, I missed the page. Oh, okay. Please go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. Since we have a number of items to run through the rest of the agenda, I'll be brief on some of these. So this is a CMHC Housing Accelerator Fund grant application. So CMHC is opening a second round of applications for the Housing Accelerator Fund, and the goal is to have through our grant application to have 280 residential building permits over the next 3 years. 5 initiatives are identified that align with the current ACRD work plan. And if successful, the grant would provide funding for planning initiatives, housing related infrastructure and community related infrastructure. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Cote.
Oh, thank you. So I'm just wondering, 280 residential building permits over 3 years. How does that compare with what we have right now for the last 3 years? is this meant for infrastructure assistance such as water and sewer, or what does that cover? Thank you.
So I don't have the building permit stats. It would be an increase, but you know, we are, you know, doing over 100 a year building permits a year. The grant application, you know, it talks about improvements to housing, as well as new builds, and then renovations to, say, for example, comply with the or to allow for accessory dwelling units, along the changes that we just made to the zoning bylaw to allow a secondary suite in all residential buildings. So it covers off all of those types of things. So we looked at sort of what was achievable. Terry had emailed me some of the infrastructure, and I won't read it all out, but I'll just highlight some of the things that are covered off. Sort of beyond the planning component. So there's construction of affordable housing, repairs and modernization, and then drinking water infrastructure, wastewater infrastructure, solid waste management infrastructure. There's some public transit, as well as there's some site preparation, and then also fire halls fall into that around the community infrastructure.
So thank you. So that would be regional district owned properties and infrastructure. It's not private, as I'm understanding. So upgrading to allow for a secondary suite or whatever is up to the homeowner or the private landowner rather than regional district. But would that cover like staff time then?
It would cover some of the planning. So under the planning initiatives, to make those changes and updates, that is covered off, and some of it will backdate to some of the recent work we've done going back to April as well. And certainly in looking at this, you know, there's some of the planning related initiatives that I see a lot of benefit in the community infrastructure, because that really aligns as well. And certainly sort of a big part of our recommendation is so that we could you know, have the potential to access that money as well.
So this increase, do we have staff that could accommodate the increase of workload?
Generally, yes. I mean, it is over 3 years, and we would be assessing sort of the building department requirements, you know, over that. But it's not over, you know, it's spread over 3 years. So it's not like something that wouldn't be manageable.
No. Sorry for the wait, Director Boyko. Somebody's ringing us here. Director Boyko, please go ahead.
Getting a phone call in the room, is that what that was?
Yes, it was.
Nice. Okay, so I got a question for staff regarding item 3, gentle housing density opportunities for existing communities. So I'm trying to figure out what the gentle part is, but there's one sentence here. The ACRD will explore opportunities for housing innovation beyond the typical single family dwelling. Does this mean that we're going to look at things like tiny homes and year-round RV accommodation and little things like this? Or what exactly does this sentence actually mean? And then I got a follow-up question. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. And so one of the things when we did in the fall, we went to the communities and talked about you know, planning changes and things that affect the community plan, was looking at options for additional housing on a lot. So should there be more than just a single family dwelling and an accessory dwelling unit on a property? Should we look at options for allowing you know, multiple types of dwellings, for example, you know, setting a maximum number of bedrooms on a lot, and then you know, having, you know, two small carriage homes that are 1 bedroom each and a 3 bedroom home, for example, for a maximum of 5, or having a 5 bedroom home. So that was something that we heard from all of the areas, the residents in all the areas that the people were wanting to look at. So rather than, large, 100-unit apartment buildings, it's more, smaller scale, but it's still adding to the housing stock within the Alberni Valley and keeping it within something that fits in a rural or regional setting.
Does that answer your questions, Director Boyko?
Yes, but so the housing options such as tiny homes and things that are not typical single family dwellings, that's not on the scope of anything being done in the ACRD in the next 3 years? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, and I think it's when we look at tiny homes or homes, as long as they're compliant with the building code, and then looking at what kinds of changes would need to happen to the zoning bylaw, that fits the definition. It's the use of or the definitions, or what people refer to as tiny homes, are really broad. So we would be looking at, or required to under the BC Building Code, to look at homes or dwellings that meet the BC Building Code and how it can fit into size. So I think those are areas that we would want to further explore. Like those were some of the things included in the draft zoning bylaw that was presented to the community, reducing the minimum lot size or the minimum square footage of homes. Right. So what kinds of size could that be looked at? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so we're still going to say that we're limited by the BC Building Code moving forward. So that does limit the options that are available to homeowners and renters and everybody else as well. Thank you very much. Final question. If we're going to add infill development, are we only permitting one auxiliary dwelling unit per property? Is that still the limit? Doesn't matter how big your property is?
So I think that's part of the discussion through the OCPs and relates to what we were referring to in the gentle housing design. So, what kind of lot coverage based on the infrastructure that's available, so primarily sewer and water, what should your community or area look like? What kinds of homes do you want to have next to you? So I think those are options where we again have more than one dwelling on a lot need to be explored and have community input and determining sort of within neighborhood areas or certain areas, what do people want their neighborhood to look like? So I think that's something that needs to be explored, and we need feedback from the communities.
No, and I thank you for the question, Mr. And I think you're getting a lot of feedback on things like we moved to the country to stay like the country, and you'll get a lot of NIMBYism and all that coming at moving forward. But we have to find the simple way to increase densification in certain areas as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And Director Sparrow.
Thank you for that. Can you use any of this funds towards the OCPs and the bylaws, like in the mapping areas that are not directly funded? So you can actually use some of this funds to move along those lines, or is it directly towards things that are tangible?
We can use portions of it towards the OCP. I was just highlighting here that sort of incorporating like things like climate adaptability, which are things we have to address in the OCP. So certain components of it can be included as well, and certainly the zoning changes that would result, to allow what we're just talking about with Director Boyko. Those types of things would be covered, as well as things like a subdivision and servicing bylaw that allowed more development, which we currently don't have.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mike? Would anyone like to make the suggested motion? Director Cote.
I'll move that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors support the grant funding application to the Housing Accelerator Fund Program, second round of intake for the incentive funding for the ACRD to create conditions to increase housing supply.
Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Johnson. Any final questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Request for decision, Agricultural Water Plan Consulting Services Award. Mike, please go ahead.
Thank you. This is a recommendation from staff to award this contract to proceed with some work. So it is recommended that the board issue the agricultural water plan contract to Upland Agriculture. The purpose is to conduct an in-depth exploration of agricultural water opportunities and challenges in the Alberni Valley. And the anticipated timeline would be starting at the end of July and completing in mid-January. Two submissions were received and evaluated, and it is recommended that the board award the contract to Upland Agriculture Consulting. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Please go ahead, Director Boyko.
Yes, thank you, Mike. Why are we selecting the more expensive decision? When I look at the numbers with a limited amount of information, such as just the percentage that is provided to the directors, they're very close. So in order to spend an extra $8,000 or $10,000 of taxpayer money, we need to have a lot more meat on why the staff is telling us to pick this consulting company for more money over the cheaper version. So I just want to explore that a lot more. Thank you.
You want to respond, Mike, please?
Yeah, certainly. I can sort of within the report on page 125 of the agenda, I just will highlight that all the bids were evaluated not just on the cost, but based on relevant experience and qualifications, references, approach and schedule, price, social procurement, and project understanding and proposal quality. We had a couple of staff independently score this, and the Upland while they were about $7,000 more, did score higher based on the evaluation criteria. I will also note that the RFP, explicitly says that that it's not an automatic that the lowest bid gets the proposal. There is the option, if the board, we could bring back the proposals in camera for the board to go through. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you, sir. I would like to see the details in camera before I vote yes or no on this, because automatically spending more money because someone gets an extra 8.5 points out of 100, I would like to see more details before spending more taxpayer money on that. Thank you.
Does everyone agree, or do you want to go ahead with the motion? What's the wishes of the board? Director Cote.
Thank you. So this is covered by grant, is it not?
Yes, it is.
It is. I have looked, I trust the staff to evaluate the contract. And I know that this is a very important issue. Water security for agricultural purposes, water planning is super important. I'd like to go ahead with this motion. I understand that there's a willingness to look at the contract, but I think that we should be trusting our staff to be doing that. I feel like it's a little bit of a micromanage to be taking a look at that. So I'd like to make the motion.
Please go ahead and read out the motion, Director Cote.
Okay, I'd recommend that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors award the ACRD Agricultural Water Plan Consulting Service Contract to Upland Agricultural Consulting Limited in the amount of $126,585, excluding GST, and authorize the CIO to negotiate and execute the contract on behalf of the regional district.
Thank you. Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Johnson. Director Roth, and then Director Roth, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to support Director Boyko's plan to go in camera. I think that we've got a lot to learn, and this would help us learn how this works. I also think that blind trust it's unwise. So I'd like to see the details. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? You still have your hand up, Director Roth. Did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, could we please get a recorded vote on this too, please? Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to call the question and please keep your hand up until I call your name so it can be recorded by Heather. All in favor of the motion? Director Haggard, Director Cote, Director Sparrow, Director Coots, Director Johnson, Director Siga, Director McEwen, Director Beckett, and Director Mastangelo, Director Spear. All against, all opposed? Director Roth and Director Boyko. Motion is approved. Thank you very much. Next, request for decision, grant funding application with NatP Special Projects. Cynthia, please go ahead.
Yes, so looking for support to secure funding from the New Child Employment and Training Program in the amount of $20,000 to host project management regional training opportunity in October. So we did receive 6 letters of support from our partnering First Nations, and this is in follow-up to a 2023 ACRD hosted the first joint training course for leadership skills and UNDRIP in the workplace with the regional municipal and First Nations, and there was a request to have more opportunities for training.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Cynthia? Seeing none, would someone like to make this motion? Director Cote?
Thank you. I would like to make the motion that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors support the special projects funding application to the New Child Youth Employment and Training Program for the Project Management Regional Training Opportunity in Fall 2024.
Can I move by Director Cote, seconded by Director Coots? Any final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next, request for decision 2024 to 2034 Community Works Fund Agreement. And Terry was going to speak to this.
Thank you. So long-awaited agreement and contract. So this is the federal, formerly gas tax money they called, the Canada Community Building Fund. So this is an agreement between the federal government and UBCM, and then we enter into an agreement with UBCM. So this is a 10-year, 2024 to 2034. We're going to get approximately $570,000 per year. So looking for 2 resolutions today, one related to the signing of the contract. And if we could do these 2 separately, that would be appreciated, as we have to submit that one when we send in the signed document. And then a second one to just advise staff or direct staff to develop a 5-year funding allocation strategy as part of next year's financial planning process. Happy to answer any questions. Oh, wait, nope, sorry. Can I add one more thing? Fire trucks, very exciting for all communities. The fire trucks are now expanded to be included as a standalone item. So something that there has been lobbying occur for since we started this agreement back in 2005. So very excited to have fire trucks as an added category.
That's fantastic. Director Sparrow.
Thank you. It's nice to enter a 10-year agreement, and that's really good. What would happen if the government changed in about 14 months? Would this agreement still be in place, or would it be superseded by the new or maybe new people in Ottawa?
I'm sure everything is able to be undone. However, it's a 10-year agreement and they give us 5 years worth of the funding. So I could see that second 5 years being more up in the air and maybe potentially less money or more money coming in for that second half. But they do actually, as part of the agreement, outline what the provinces and thereby what the communities are going to be getting out of those first 5 years. So I think it would be very challenging for them to unwind this signed agreement, but nothing is impossible.
Thank you, Director Cote.
Thank you. So one of the partners is the UBCM. They administer the money out. So, yeah, I can't see that an agreement could be that easily undone. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Boyko.
So Terry, this money currently, I think for this year, we've already pre-allocated it towards the OCP investigation. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we have about $4 million, I think, remaining from the previous 10-year agreement that we have committed all to projects. And then we also committed to the OCP project this year. However, I'm also earning interest, which we were very conservative in estimating. And so I have interest earning every day on the funds that are still sitting there. So that will become part of that discussion in the fall, will be the upcoming funding that's coming in, plus whatever interest we've earned. If there's a project on the books that isn't going to proceed for whatever reason, we'll circle back on those as well. But I feel like at this point, we have a very full plate of accomplishing what was approved in this financial plan. So I just think we need a little bit of time from a staff perspective to take a breath and look at what these next 5 years might look like. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. It's interesting you mentioned fire trucks because I know there's one coming up for Beaver Creek Fire Hall in the next year or two, but every time I drive by there's 2 fire trucks sitting out back. Are we just letting those things rot in the back there and not selling them off? Or what's the plan for those assets?
I don't know about 2, but I know there's one that is not in use anymore because of the FUS fire requirements. However, if they get called out for wildfire contract from the province, there is an ability to use the truck for that. So it can't become part of their routine fleet. However, it is an extra vehicle. To sell these fire trucks is basically to sell them for scrap metal because everyone is having to adhere to the same FUS standards and age out requirements. So there's very little value in these fleet vehicles once they've exceeded their useful life. So I do know they have one extra one. They've been looking for different storage opportunities of where to put it and extra, like if we proceed with a maintenance building out at AVRA, I know all the Valley fire departments kind of have their eye on storing there. Because again, we don't have a choice but to upgrade these fleet, but those trucks are very good still. They've got a lot of life left in them, even if it's not valued life from an insurance standpoint.
Yeah, there's been a Beaver Creek one out back for over a year, and a Sproul Lake one showed up about 6 months ago. So there's currently 2 out there on a regular basis. Thank you.
I do know there has been a resolution gone to UBCM to try and extend the life of fire trucks because they're so extremely expensive to purchase for small communities, but I haven't seen any movement on that as of yet. Director Roth, please go ahead.
I'm curious, like, do we lease those trucks up? Like someone told me that that we last year leased out one of the trucks to Kelowna. Is that right?
So we can go on contract. So BC Wildfire can put out a call for both vehicles and apparatus and crew. And then we can respond and go up and fight a fire on behalf of the province. We're under contract with the province. And then they have set charge out rates for how many people you've sent out, where you've had to travel to, how many hours, a whole bunch of paperwork. And then we submit that and get grant money back that goes to the department that sent. So if it was Beaver Creek that went up there, and they received revenue back, that would go into the Beaver Creek Fire Department's revenue budget. So last year we had a situation where we actually, I think it was the Beaver Creek truck that went up, but it ended up going up with a split crew of 2 volunteers from Beaver Creek and 2 from Sprout Lake, just due to availability of crew members and not wanting to leave any departments locally short. So in that case, we had to do some extra allocation because the 2 members from Sprout Lake, that department should get some credit for sending them, but the actual vehicle and the other crew was from Beaver Creek. So yep, it is common. We constantly are looking for if other areas need support. And on the flip side of that, never wanting to leave the valley unprotected. So a lot of communication between both the Port Alberni Fire Department as well as our volunteer fire departments in the region to make sure that we've left adequate coverage in the Alberni Valley for anything we might need.
Okay, thank you.
Director Cote?
Thank you. 2 things here. Just about fire departments. I think it would be beneficial for this board to have a session on what the fire departments do within the valley, talk about the mutual aid, because when Beaver Creek or Sprout Lake have sent fire trucks and crews to provincial fire to help out with provincial firefighting, the other fire departments are here we have a mutual aid agreement so that we're not undercovered, which is great. Helps us all out. Just also, Great Central Lake has taken one of our old fire trucks there. So it's out there, it's usable. They have a trained crew on that truck that's separate from the Sprout Lake Fire Department. They, one of the members, at least one or two, used to be with the fire department at Sprout Lake. Back to the grant community work fund agreement. I'm sure that this will be coming to an electoral area directors meeting in the future. And what we've looked at in the past was because Sprout Lake and Beaufort in particular have been underserved by this funding. We looked at other grants that were available that we could use in those areas. So I'd really like to see a presentation, I guess, on what grants are available that we've used in other areas, because the community works funds are very specific. And we've used other grants in other areas that all areas could have used, but has gone to either Sprout Lake or another area. So to make funding equitable to all areas, I think it's important to look at the big picture. So if that could be come to an electoral area directors meeting in the future with all of that information, that'd be very helpful, because otherwise Sprout Lake will be saying me. Thanks.
Okay, go ahead.
So before we go further, I'll just circle back and make note. We'll do a separate session on fire and fire response. But I think we should go back to the matter at hand, which is larger than fire. I think the celebration of fire trucks being added brought us down a completely different path. So made note of that, and just wanted to flag that we'll bring that fire discussion back to the board.
Thank you. We have 2 suggested motions on the agenda. Would anybody like to make these motions? Director Cote?
Okay, I'll move that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors approve entering into the 2024-2034 Community Works Fund Agreement under the Administrative Agreement of the Canada Community Building Fund with the UBCM, and authorize the Chair and Chief Administration Officer to sign on behalf of the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District.
Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any final questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead, Director Cote.
Okay, I'll move that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors direct staff to develop a 5-year Canada Community Building Fund allocation strategy for consideration as part of the 2025 to 2029 financial plan discussions.
Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Johnson. Any final questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next is planning matters. This is for electoral area directors only. First item on the agenda is TUP 24005 Donaldson, 1360 Smithdale Road, Long Beach. This was reviewed and discussed by the board on June the 26th. So if there's no questions from the board of directors, I'd like to go to Director Siga to make the motion, if that's all right.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to move that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors issue a temporary use permit TUP 24005.
Moved by Director Siga, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is Stevie D 24005 Don Saywell Developments Limited 1410411 Marina Vista Drive, Sprout Lake. Please go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. So this is a property on Marina Vista Drive in the Sprout Lake area. The proposal is to construct a single-family dwelling with a 2-car garage below and a deck out front. And the proposed dwelling includes an attached deck that extends 10 feet into the required front yard. I would note that this is a proposal. The plans that are part of the the application show the lower floor, which is the garage and some stairwells. There will be a dwelling above this, and then showing where the deck is. This would include the entire length of the deck, sort of rather than just to the posts. And the Sprout Lake APC reviewed this application on July 15th and recommended proceeding to neighbor notification, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Director Cote, would you like to make the motion?
I would. So I move that the Board of Directors consider issuing development variance permit DVD 24005, subject to neighboring properties being notified as per Local Government Act 499.
Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any final questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is our motion carried. Next is RD 23016 Colson Forest Products Limited, Lot 2, Sterling Arm Crescent, Sprout Lake. Mike, please go ahead.
Thank you. Again, this is a property on Sterling Arm Crescent. This is a site-specific rezoning application for the property, and it is adjacent to the applicant's house. The purpose of this CD zone, or comprehensive development zone, would be to allow construction of a 1,714 square meter or 18,450 square foot personal storage facility. And then the uses permitted would also include a single-family dwelling and home occupation and accessory uses. I would note that the zone incorporates greater or larger setbacks and additional landscaping requirements. As this application includes an OCP amendment, a public hearing would be required. So the Sprout Lake Advisory Planning Commission has reviewed this application actually at 2 separate meetings, and also recommends that this proceed, and the next step would be to meet the conditions and to proceed to public hearing if that's if the board proceeds with first reading of these bylaws. So I will stop there and answer any questions that the directors may have.
Thank you, Mike. Director Boyko, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mike. This is an example where, as a director voting on something that is a little bit controversial, as in it went to the APC more than once, I would like to see the APC minutes in detail and the videos online so that I can look at them in my free time, because that's what I like to do, is be more involved and know everything that's going on, to be able to give a knowledgeable opinion. So at our next electoral area directors meeting, I want to have a vote on having all of the APC meeting minutes available and the recordings online for reference. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Director Cote, would you like to start making the motions?
I would. I'd just like to comment first that the APC did look at this twice. So once again, I think that allowing the advisory planning committees to actually investigate and look at what the application is and how it would affect our community, I think is important. And they did approve this. So at this time, I would like to make the motion that bylaw P1506, Sprout Lake Official Plan Amendment bylaw, be read a first time.
Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead.
Move that bylaw P1507, Regional District of Alberni Clayoquot zoning amendment, be read a first time.
Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead.
I'll move that bylaw P1508, Regional District of Alberni Clayoquot zoning atlas amendment bylaw, be read a first time.
Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I just also like to comment that this is a different type of application, and that's why the APC wanted to look at it twice. So they did a thorough job. At this time, I move that the public hearing for bylaw P1506 and P1507 and P1508 be delegated to the Director of the Electoral Area D, the alternate director or chairperson of the regional district.
Thank you. Moved by Director Cote, second by Director Sparrow. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead.
I would move that the Board of Directors confirm that adoption of bylaw P1506, P1507, and P1508 is subject to confirmation from the Sprout Lake Fire Department that access and fire safety measures are in place to provide adequate fire protection to the site, and B, meeting all technical referral agency requirements.
Thank you. Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. I don't see Janice here, so are you putting people in the waiting room?
Nope, Janice is online.
I don't see her.
Yep, she's there. Yep, she's done it. Thank you.
Okay, Janice, can you put Director Minions in the waiting room for the next item? Oh. So the next item on the agenda is TUP 19018R Brayton A467 Bothwell Road, Sprout Lake, temporary use permit renewal application report. Mike, please go ahead.
Yes, so this is an application to renew a short-term vacation rental temporary use permit for the property on Bothwell Road. It is for the cabin that is on the property. Again, this renewal application was reviewed by the Advisory Planning Commission on July 15th, and they recommended proceeding. The next step would be neighbor notification before it's brought back to the board for issuance, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is there any questions for Mike? Director Boyko.
Yes, thank you. Quick question. This grayscale map you guys have included on page 167, is that LiDAR data? That's the first time I think I've seen that.
Yes, it is.
That's very good. Second thing, so this application was initially approved in August 2020 and would have lasted for 3 years, so it would have expired August 2023. And then this short-term rental kept going, I assume, until today. And it was not reapplied until May of let me see exactly here. May 10th, 2024. So basically 2 months ago. So are we in a habit of letting people have their things expire and go for more than a year with no permit and then allowed to reapply? Because I remember a couple of years ago, we had a similar thing with Holly's Golf Course where it was a similar thing and they were not allowed to reapply, as other things have happened at that application as well. But are we allowing people to skip a year and keep operating and then reapply? Like, how are we doing it? Second question is, in this application, it says they can renew again. So would that be a third renewal? Because that's how it's worded in there right now. Thank you.
So renewing again would be a typo unless it was a significantly different application. We do notify people when it comes up. We've had a backlog of applications. So we would have, I was just talking to Alex, we would have notified the property owner and they've made the application.
So just to follow up, there's no penalty for people that just say, oh, we're not going to renew it. And then until someone complains, then we'll renew it. And then within 2 months, get it on the docket. That's fairly fast. All the applications are taking 8 or 9 months. I'm just wondering if there's any repercussions on this.
That would be a decision of the board if they wanted to. So we, our normal process, if an application like this expires, we notify the property owner, and then if they make the application, we will process the application and we bring it back to the board.
Thank you.
Director Cote, did you want to make the motion?
I do. I would move that the Board of Directors consider temporary use permit renewal application TUP 19018R subject to the following: neighborhood notification as per Local Government Act 494. I don't believe there was any complaints about this place either.
Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Janice, I see you now. Can you bring Shari back from the waiting room?
I have a question. I have a question while we're waiting.
Go ahead.
So renewal for temporary use permits, are applicants reminded at all? Did we ever send out a notice that their renewal is coming up? Or could this be just, I didn't realize that it was over?
We will generally send a notice after it's expired, which I think is what happened in this case. So we are in the process of updating our CityView software. So a lot of these will be more automatic going forward.
Thank you. I think that we do need to change that practice because, you know, I know looking after my father's estate right now, unless there's a renewal, I don't know that there's something coming, and I rely on those kind of notices. So I think that would be good practice here. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead then. Next on the agenda is TUP 19020R Curtis 8279 District Drive, Sproat Lake, temporary use permit renewal application. Mike, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So this is another STR TUP renewal for a property on Dixon Drive. Similar situation to the previous one, we haven't had any complaints about this one, and the Advisory Planning Commission reviewed this on July 15th and again recommended proceeding with the renewal, and happy to answer questions.
Any questions or comments? Penny, Dr. Cote, would you like to make the motion?
Sure. I would move that the Board of Directors consider temporary use permit application TUP 19020R subject to the following neighborhood notification as per Local Government Act 494. And I think this is a renewal also. And appreciate people actually having a temporary use permit. Thank you.
Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any final questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next on the agenda is TUP 24002 Precor 10250 Sterling Arm Crescent, Sproat Lake, temporary use application memorandum and permit. Alex.
Thank you. You get to hear from me now. This is a temporary use permit application that would allow for the continued use of an existing recreational vehicle on the vacant property at 10250 Sterling Arm Crescent for the personal and seasonal recreational use by the property owners over the summer months. The board considered this application first time at the June 26th meeting, where the board resolved to proceed with the TUP subject to neighbor notification and also confirmation that the sewage would be dealt with in accordance with the Island Health regulations. The neighbor notification and public advertisement process has been completed and no correspondence was received. And the applicant has agreed that all Island Health sewage disposal requirements will be met prior to any recreational use. And a condition has been included in the TUP that would ensure that that takes place. At this time, staff recommend that the board issue the TUP, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Cote. Would you like to make the motion, please?
I would. I'd like to make motion that the Board of Directors issue temporary use permit TUP 24002. And I have a
comment to make as well. Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. Please go ahead and make your comment.
Thank you. This is one of those issues. It's kind of a grandfather thing that's happening on this property because it's been used in this manner for 30 years. And I really want our OCP to establish the difference between recreational and residential. Sprout Lake is a recreational residential area, and it's a gray area. So I think that we really need to establish that. What is a recreational lot going forward? Thank you.
Great, thank you. All in favor? Did you have a question, Director Sparrow? Go ahead.
Thank you. So this permit's for one RV, but suppose somebody else shows up with another RV for a weekend, are they in contravention, or is this, you know what I'm saying, like you could have a bunch of guys show up for a week and kind of populate the area like they do anyway, but this wouldn't be in contravention of this, but
Good question through the chair. The TUP would allow for the one RV. The zoning bylaw limits the use of an RV as a temporary dwelling to a 24-hour period in the R zone. So it would the zoning bylaw would restrict that, and it would not be permitted in the TUP anyways.
Thank you. Seeing no more questions or comments, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next on the agenda is DVE 24006 Elliott 5424 Gordon Avenue, Beaver Creek Development Variance Permit, and that is going to be Alex again. Please go ahead.
Thank you. This is a development variance application to allow for the construction of an accessory dwelling unit on the 0.6 hectare property. The variance would permit an increase in the ADU building height from 12 feet to 19 feet to allow the roof line and the design of the detached ADU to match that of the existing house. The Beaver Creek APC considered this application on July 16th, where they supported the application as presented. Staff recommend that the board proceed with considering the variance application and move ahead with the neighbor notification process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Alex? Seeing none, Director Roth, would you like to make the motion for this, please?
Sure. I move that the Board of Directors consider issuing development variance permit DVE 24006, subject to neighboring properties being notified as per Local Government Act, Section 499.
Moved by Director Roth. Could I get a seconder? Seconded by Director Sega. Any final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next on the agenda is RE 23002 Hodgson 65255 Plested Road, Beaver Creek, rezoning application memorandum and bylaw 1P1481, and that is Alex. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a rezoning application that would rezone the 0.6 hectare property to RA3 district in order to subdivide the property into two lots. The housing related rezoning is consistent with the residential use designation in the Beaver Creek OCP. And the board has considered this application a first time at the June 12th meeting, after which the public input process was conducted. No correspondence has been received from the public on this application. And at this time, staff recommend that the board proceed with 3 readings of the bylaw, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments for Alex? Seeing none, Director Roth, would you like to start making the motions, please?
Sure. I move that bylaw P1481, Regional District of Alberni-Clayoquot Zoning Atlas Amendment Bylaw be read a first time.
Moved by Director Roth, second by Director Sparrow. Any final questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead, Director Roth.
I move that it be read a second time.
Moved by Director Roth, second by Director Cote. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Please go ahead, Director Roth.
I move that it be read a third time.
Moved by Director Roth, second by Director Sparrow. Final questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Janice, can I ask you to put Director Roth in the waiting room, please? Thank you. Next on the agenda is RE 24001 Tardif 6467 Walker Road, Beaver Creek, rezoning application report and bylaw 1493, and that is going to be Alex.
Thank you. This is another rezoning application. This is the first time the board has seen this one. It would rezone the property to RA3 district in order to facilitate a 3-lot subdivision of the 0.9 hectare property. The proposed Barrowland Strata subdivision would provide a separate lot for the 2 existing homes on the property and create a vacant lot for additional housing for the family. The application was supported by the Beaver Creek APC at their July meeting. The property is designated residential use in the Beaver Creek OCP, and the rezoning complies with the policies and objectives of the OCP. This would be the type of application where a public hearing is not held. And if the board proceeds with considering the bylaws, there would be a neighbor notification and public advertising process to gather that public input. This time, staff recommend that the board proceed with considering bylaw P1493 at a future date, subject to the public notification process and technical agency referral requirements, and as well as confirmation that the sewage disposal can be accommodated for the development. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Alex? Seeing none, would anyone like to make these motions? Director Boyko, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make the motion that the Board of Directors consider first reading of bylaw P1493, Regional District of Alberni Claycott zoning amendment bylaw at a future date, and that the notice be given in accordance with section 647 of the Local Government Act, that the Board of Directors confirm the adoption of bylaw P1493 is subject to A, confirmation from a registered on-site wastewater practitioner that the portion of the property to be rezoned is capable of supporting on-site sewage disposal to a minimum 0.24 hectare density, and B, meeting all technical referral agency requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. There's 2 separate motions, so we'll vote on the first one first. Moved by Director Boyko, seconded by Director Cote. Final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. And the second motion moved by Director Boyko, second by Director Cote. Final questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Janice, can we have Director Roth back in, please? Thank you. Next on the agenda is DVF 2407 Palmer 6860 Cypress Boulevard, Cherry Creek Development Variance Permit, and that's going to be Alex.
Thank you. This is a development variance application to reduce the watercourse setback from 30 meters to 15 meters to allow for the setting of a new home on the property. There is a minor creek that dissects the east side of the 3.8 hectare property and seasonal wetland areas in the south. The variance would allow for the optimal siting of this house, considering the topography in those watercourses. The 15-meter watercourse setback aligns with the minor stream development permit area requirements in the OCP. The Cherry Creek APC considered this application at their July 22nd meeting, where the members supported the variance as presented, and staff recommend that the board proceed with the neighbor notification process to gather input on this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, could I call on Director Sparrow to make the motion, please?
So thank you. I'd like to make the motion that the Board of Directors consider development permit, variance permit DVF 24007, subject to the neighboring properties being notified as per Local Government Act 499.
Thank you. Moved by Director Sparrow, seconded by Director Cote. Any final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda is DVF 24009 Dockendorf 6635 Cypress Boulevard, Cherry Creek Development Variance Permit. Alex, please go ahead.
Thank you. This property is right across the road from the other one. It's another development variance application to reduce the watercourse setback from 30 meters to 25 meters. And this would be to allow for the construction of a pool shed that would be adjacent to a new pool that's under construction on the east side of the house. Similar to the previous application, the reduction in the watercourse setback to 25 meters would comply with the OCP requirements, and no development is planned within the 15-meter riparian area. Both variance applications here on Cypress Boulevard do align with the minor watercourse guidelines in the OCP, and it is staff's intent to see the zoning bylaw updated at some point to align the setback and the riparian area requirements for major and minor streams. Given that the Cherry Creek APC did consider this application on Monday, where those in attendance supported the variance as presented, and staff recommend that the board proceed with the neighbor notification process and consider a final decision at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Director Sparrow, would you like to make the motion?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to make a motion that the board of directors consider issuing development variance permit DVF 24009, subject to neighboring properties being notified as per the Local Government Act S499.
Moved by Director Sparrow. Could I get a seconder? Second by Director Cote. Final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Director Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. Just looking at the plan, is a pool considered a structure or just for setback? So just wondered.
I'd be happy to answer that. So we do require building permits for these types of pools. Having said that, though, the water course setback in the zoning bylaw is specific to buildings and structures themselves. So the pool would not be subject to that.
Okay, so next on the agenda is TUP 23003 Hollis Golf Course 3133 Alberni Highway, Cherry Creek, temporary use permit memorandum. Alex, please go ahead.
Thank you. A report has been prepared with background relating to the security requirements that are included as a condition of temporary use permit TUP 23003 to guarantee the performance of the terms of the permit for the Hollis Golf Course property. The resolution that was passed by the board on March 13th, which conditionally supported the application, the authority to require the financial security as part of the TUP and the relevance to this application are all detailed in the report. I just want to note that if the board wishes to reconsider the previous direction provided on the application, the report discusses those options. And in that case, the recommendation would be to direct staff to bring a report back that looks at the process for reconsideration, as well as the specifics of what that new direction would be. At this time, the staff recommendation is to receive this report for information, and we are available to help answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from the board members? Director Cote.
Thank you. So just trying to put this into context with developments in Sprout Lake for campsite. There was a mandatory hedging that had to go in. And so is this in line with that? Thank you.
So there are landscape screening details that are included separately as a condition that the board has placed on this temporary use permit. The landscaping that we've looked at is specific to the highway frontages along Old Nanaimo Highway and Alberni Highway, and a lot of it has to do with infill of what the natural vegetation is there, with evergreen hedges and whatnot. There's also natural vegetation along the west side on Arden Road, where we looked at supplementing that with some planted vegetation, and then some solid fencing at the access on Arden Road as well. So that is considered separately by the temporary use permit condition.
My question was, is that in line with the development that's happened at Sprout Lake? Thank you.
Yeah, we've included similar conditions in other temporary use permits and development permits as well.
Thank you, Alex. Any other questions or comments? Director Sparrow.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. Very thorough, but I'd like to see this project go ahead and do everything we can to make it work. I think we have everything in place. It's up to the will of those involved to actually progress this thing forward, and it will be done. So hopefully it will be done soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody like to make the motion the board of directors receive the report? Director Sparrow.
I will make the motion that the board of directors receive the report.
Moved by Director Sparrow, second by Director Cote. Any final questions or comments? Director Boyko.
Thank you, Chair. So we're just receiving a report and then the applicant can finish their application, or what's the next step here?
Please go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, the consideration of the temporary use permit was subject to a number of conditions that are included in that March 13th resolution that's highlighted in the report. The applicant has been working through some of those conditions that I'm aware of. The next step for us, once we get closer to satisfying those conditions, would be the neighbor notification process. We would be mailing out to everybody within 100 meters of this property, gathering the public input, and then bringing the entire package back to the board to consider issuing the temporary use permit.
So just for clarification, the applicant is satisfying conditions at this point, and it will come back to the board for a final approval. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Thank you very much, Alex. I'm still concerned about the $10,000 bond, how that number was arrived at, and why it is $10,000 and not $1,000 and not $100,000. How we're just coming to that magic number, and how it will be applied, because this is setting a precedent. And I know it does exist in BC Local Government Act to put this in, but it has not been done that I know of in the ACRD. So we are setting a precedent with this property that could be applied in the future, and we just need to be very careful in how we're doing it and making sure we are very honest, open, and accountable to our taxpayers on why we're doing this, how it will be applied, and what the penalties will be. If they're missing a tree, are they going to get the $10,000 bill right then, and or taking that money and make it away, or is it going to be like $1,000, or what the actual details are? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Director Boyko?
I just have a question before we go on to the next section, if that's okay, Chair.
Yes, please go ahead.
So I'm looking at the TUP application list, and there's one for Beaufort that was applied for before one of the ones we did today on Bothell Road, and it is awaiting review. I just wonder why it was not at this meeting, because it should have been ready for review July 5th. So when will it become, and why was it not on this meeting when other ones were prioritized? Thank you.
Thank you for having that, Director Barco. We actually do have that one almost ready for review, and we're looking to organize a Beaufort APC meeting in August, so ahead of the next board meeting. This was a function of the APC meetings that we had scheduled in July, and that's how some of these applications move forward. However, given that we do want to move that application forward at the next meeting, and you'll be hearing some proposed dates from us shortly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So now we're moving on to all directors. Request for decision, Rogers Communication Cell Tower Site, W3579 DeBow Road. Alex, please go ahead.
Thank you. A report is provided on the request for land use concurrence from Rogers Communications regarding the proposed cell tower on DeBow Road. This request was first considered by the board in November 2023, where the board had resolved to refer the request to the Beaver Creek APC and request that the applicants hold a public information meeting. The request was discussed with the APC on December 19th of last year, with a number of questions raised at that meeting and with the agent for Rogers in attendance. And a public meeting was held by Rogers on February 22nd of this year. In the lead up to that public engagement in February, Rogers completed additional public outreach by mail out and newspaper ads. We'll highlight that 3 members of the public were in attendance at the info session, and an additional 17 individuals provided comments from the supplemental public notification process that came from Rogers. The community responses and all of the background on the proposed cell tower are highlighted in the updated request for land use concurrence from Rogers that's dated April 4th, 2024, included in your package and also linked online. The agent for Rogers also presented as a delegation at the June 19th Electoral Area Directors Committee. That presentation is included in the review package. Following the EA Directors Committee meeting, Rogers provided additional comments in relation to Health Canada safety standards and background on the type of wavelength frequencies that would be associated with this tower. Those comments are summarized in the staff report, and a letter from a radio engineer with Rogers is also included in the review package. That concludes that the radio frequency exposure level calculated at the ground level at this site is approximately 14 times lower than the allowable maximum limit that is specified by Health Canada. The siting of the proposed cell tower complies with the ACRD zoning bylaw and the improvement of broadband connectivity for underserved communities and along key transportation corridors is included as a within the board's strategic plan. So at this time, staff do recommend that the board proceed with issuing a letter of land use concurrence and supporting the proposed cell tower, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Alex. Director Roth.
Thank you. I've got quite a few comments to make here. Recently, I went online to further discuss this issue with people in my area, or in actually any area, but it was mostly my area. One person said that this was supposed to be brought back to the Beaver Creek APC. They were disappointed that they're skipping the process. This person would not approve the location of Rogers has chosen. It's far too close to homes and it's not worth the risk. Another person said when he started looking at these towers, he watched quite a few fires that were caused by vandalism, mostly in India. They burned pretty much with the same intensity as a battery-powered car. Can the fire chief guarantee that they have the ability to put out a fire that could possibly take place? This could create a huge danger being in a rural environment. The concrete jungle is not as flammable as the proposed site will be. Another person also brought up a concern regarding a potential fire risk. This person spoke to Cherry Creek's fire chief and was told that local firefighters have not been trained to put out a fire on a cell tower. Another person said that they like the idea. TELUS service sucks and they will switch to Rogers. Another person said that cell towers belong up on the mountain. No reason it has to be in our backyard unless there's something else happening behind the scenes. And another person said they're against it. Most people that I speak with are against it in my area, and it's really close to where I live. I've been doing a lot of research myself, and one report that I read said that after examining 97 studies around electromagnetic radiation and their effects on the environment, it can be summarized with the radiation that the radiation weakens the radar capability of birds and insects and disrupts the metabolism in plants. There are 2 honey producers that I know about in the immediate vicinity of the proposed cell tower location. We also received a letter just today, or maybe it was yesterday, from another person that questions, I'm just going to read out 2 paragraphs. They question the suitability of this site for the purpose of erecting a tall tower due to its proximity to the flight path of aircraft approaching or leaving Port Alberni Airport, Sprout Lake, or the Port Alberni Harbor. This is of greatest concern during periods of low cloud ceiling over the Alberni Valley, which occurs frequently during the late fall and winter months, but can occur at any time during periods of precipitation. From their residents near the end of Willow Road, they frequently see or hear aircraft flying low shortly above the treetops to the north of their place. This suggests that a common flight path is in the vicinity of this proposed tower location. For certain, there are people that live in the area immediately west of the proposed cell tower that will no longer feel safe in their own home if the cell tower is built. Like one citizen said earlier, cell towers belong up on the mountain, not in our backyard. I personally do not want to be responsible for making people feel unsafe in their own home. It's not fair to put that on anyone. Health Canada says there isn't a risk, but some scientists disagree. I think in this case, it's better to err on the side of caution. I too live in the area, and if this plan is allowed to move forward in the current location, I know that I will always have the uncertainty of radiation being a problem in the back of my mind. I'd like a recorded vote on this, and I'd like to move that the Board of Directors direct staff to issue a letter that says we do not approve of cell tower site W3579. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Moved by Director Ross, seconded by Director Boyko. So this is a motion not to approve the cell tower. All in favor of the motion? Moved by Director Roth and Director Roth and Director Boyko in favor of the motion. All opposed?
Can we not discuss it?
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the motion. All in favor of the motion? Director Roth and Director Boyko in favor of the motion. All against the motion? Director Hager, Director McEwen, Director Steer, Director Beckett, Director Sparrow. Motion is not carried. Okay, does anyone want to make the suggested motion on the agenda to approve the land use occurrence for Rogers Communication Cell Tower? Dr. Johnson?
I'll move that the Board of Directors direct staff to issue a letter of land use concurrence for Rogers Communications file number W3579, noting that the ACRD supports the cell tower location.
Moved by Director Johnson. Do you have a seconder for this motion? Seconded by Director Steer. Any questions or comments? Director Roth?
I'd like a recorded vote, please.
Thank you. Any other final questions or comments on the motion? So just a reminder, please hold your hand up till I call your name. All in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Director Sika, Director Hager, Director McEwen, Director Beckett, Director Steer, Director Mastangelo, Director Johnson, Director Coots, Director Sparrow, Director Cote. All against? Director Roth and Director Boyko. Motion is carried. Thank you. Next is staff reports. There's a meeting schedule, August 2024, building report, June 2024, monthly agreement and grant delegation report for June 1st to June 20th, 2024. Any questions from directors on these reports? Could I get a motion that the Board of Directors receives the staff reports A through C? Moved by Director Sparrow. Could I get a second by Director Johnson? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is member reports. 911 Corporation, Director Beckett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We met late last month on just a couple things very quickly. The Tahalman, and I apologize if I've mispronounced that, the Tahalman Nation has been voted in as a shareholder in the 911 Corporation, and we welcome the nation to the table and to the corporation. We extended a backup agreement extension with the Regional District of Fraser Fort George, and that essentially is that if anything ever happened with the Campbell River site, we would be able to have full service out of Fraser Fort George. So that's great. And we had a report on management and statistical information. And very quickly, the number of calls over last year are up about 20%. And if I can recall, because I don't have the notes in front of me, I believe Thursdays around 4 o'clock in the afternoon are peak times, interestingly enough. So if you're going to need emergency services, try to avoid Thursdays at 4 p.m. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Beckett. Vancouver Island Regional Library Director Cote.
Thank you. No report. We have a meeting this Friday.
Thank you. Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce Director Minions.
No report.
Air Quality Council, Port Alberni Director Sparrow.
Thank you. Air Quality Council, we have a new radio public service announcement on building your do-it-yourself air cleaner for the wildfire season, being broadcast now till early fall, so July to October. The AQC has made a formal request to the ACRD for a letter of support from the Ministry of Forest regarding reduction of slash pile burning in the forest industry, which we did today. And shortly, other highlights, we wish the ACRD and ACHN success in their Plan H grant applications. So there, I shortened it up for you. There you go.
Thank you, Director Sparrow. Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities, Director Cote.
Thank you. A couple of things. So UBCM registration, I believe, is open. So you can register for the AVICC Association lunch. Also, AVICC is looking at advocacy. So if the regional district has any regional resolutions that are going forward and they would like the AVICC executive to attend their meeting with them, they just need to make that request. And our next meeting is August the 9th. Thanks.
And they always have a great lunch. I always enjoy myself.
We were always honored with Premier Horgan because this is his area. So yes, he always attended our AVICC lunch at UBCM and always attended AVICC convention. We have put in a invitation to Premier Eby, but I'm not sure. He did attend our lunch last year. Thank you.
Thank you. Tawaskam Public Advisory Group, Director Sparrow.
Thank you. I don't have a report. I have a statement. We are deeply saddened to hear the passing of John Douglas. John was a valued member of Tawaskam Forest Group. He offered insight and questions and comments and enhanced forestry management in the Alberni Valley. Our thoughts and condolences go to the family and friends to time. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Director Sparrow. Any other reports? Good at a motion that the Board of Directors receives the member reports, moved by Director Coots, second by Director Johnson. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is area reports. Electoral Area A, Banfield, Director Beckett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's summer, it's beautiful, and the place is humming. And speaking of humming, there was the Pachina Beach Music Festival this last weekend, hosted at the Pachina Beach and the Hawaiiat campground. And not only that, but we also had music by the sea this weekend. So two music events, fantastic, and a shout out to Director Coates and her father for providing my family with some tickets because they couldn't make it, unfortunately. And my family and friends had a great time going to that event. Last but not least, August 3rd, 4th, and 5th, the August long weekend, the Banfield Volunteer Fire Department fundraising fishing tournament is on. I encourage everyone to come down to the fishing capital of British Columbia to enjoy the fishing tournament. Such an amazing family fun event where almost every entry gets some form of prize, and that's my report. Thank you.
You're a very busy community, Director Beckett. Electoral Area B, Beaufort, Director Boyko.
Try and be as upbeat as Director Beckett. Things are nice and quiet in Beaufort. Everybody's farming, getting ready for a second cut of hay, keeping the animals going. Ray just had a nice farm market last week, and they'll be having them every month or 3 weeks. And it's a good way to buy local produce from a local producer because they actually have to sell their stuff to the mainland and get it shipped back here after all the distribution facilities were removed on Vancouver Island. So just so you know, that's how you actually get your stuff at a grocery store here. It actually goes to the mainland and comes back for some reason. So support your local producers. We'll have our next town hall sometime towards the end of September, and people are looking forward to those and making sure we have all our questions ready. Thanks.
Thank you. Electoral Area C, Long Beach, Director Siga.
Hi, thank you. I attended the recognition of the carving that was done by Clifford George at the, let me see, it would be the south entrance or to the Pacific Rim National Park. It's a beautiful carving, and it complements the two wolves at the north end of the park, done by Joe Martin. And we have a sign going up to acknowledge the Clayoquot Biosphere Trust area tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And it'll be by the sign on the entrance to, well, close to the turnoff at Tofino Junction there, Tofino Euclid Junction. And other than that, I think everything is bumping along. Thanks.
Thank you. Electoral Area D, Sprout Lake, Director Cote.
Thank you. Sprout Lake is busy, even though somebody said today they didn't see a lot of people out there. When you see the bombers go by, there is a lot of boat traffic that follows. It's a real buzz in the community that the bombers are flying again. It's a wonderful sound to hear them come by. It's a relief to me that I don't have my son home with the jet ski because he blew up the motor twice jumping the wake. So, yes, it brings back fond memories, I guess. This Saturday, the Community Association is hosting Farewell to the Martin Mars community event from 11 till 3. They are expecting quite a few people. Hopefully people understand that there's very limited parking. So commuting would be asking first to come by bike or by, if you can walk, if you're within that area, or commute with other people. So really asking for people to help us with that. They have sales for hot dogs and drinks and memorabilia. There's tours of the water bomber. They're selling tickets for a VIP offering to have a ride in the bomber. Should be a really fun day. I'll be there volunteering as I always do in my community. We had a successful lightning on the lake a couple weekends ago. I think the 6th, 7th that weekend. I think it was that weekend. Yeah, very successful. We had boats returning that of a different level. I'm not that up on racing boats, so I can't really tell you much about that, but people really enjoyed it and it was very well attended. Also, the weather really cooperated. Also, the lake is busy with the dragon boaters. They're out there in force. You can see them mornings most every day. Just some different things that are happening in the community. Della's Cafe is renovating, so they sell ice cream there. It's changed now, so it's more of a restaurant-y cafe kind of thing, offering in the community, which is great. Houseboats are busy. Klikoot Marina is opened again for boat gas. They're doing a great job also. And July 5th, I had a trip out to Banfield and to Pachina Beach and over to Brady's Beach. And I have to say that the road is just unbelievably well maintained, and it was a pleasure to drive there. I'd recently been to Whistler. The road is bumpy and not nearly as good as the road to Banfield. So congratulations to that community for what you've got. And that's my report. Thanks.
Thank you. Electoral Area E, Beaver Creek, Director Roth.
Hi, I've got no report today. I didn't have enough time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Electoral Area E, Cherry Creek F, Cherry Creek, Director Smith.
Thank you for that. From the ACRE point of view, I don't have much to report. It's all up to the water board, I guess. The conversion study, I think, is progressing. It's up to them to decide what they're going to do, how that's going to move forward. And the fire hall and all the water systems, all up to them too. So lots are happening, but not at this board.
Thank you. City of Port Alberni, I just want to invite directors and staff to a celebration of life for Councillor John Douglas. It's going to be held on August the 6th at Canal Beach at 6 p.m. I think if, was it for John's perseverance, that we would not have Canal Beach in our community. So we want to honor him in that way. So please put it in your calendars. District of Tofino, Director Steer.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. Yeah, so at the District of Tofino, we had council meeting yesterday where a limits to growth policy was brought forward to the beginnings of, which is going to be centered on our water allocation in the region. This is going to have very significant impacts on development in the district. We also were presented with our zoning bylaw review, which, as I'm sure staff there at the ACRD recognizes, a massive project. This is the framework that was outlined by staff to proceed with. This is approximately about an 18-month project to move forward once again, which will have significant impact on the district. And a big shout out, as we speak, Sanoa Olin is competing in the Olympics in Tahiti right now as our surf representative for Canada. And I think I'm not sure of her timing today, but she will be competing in the surf event. And I know the community is ecstatic, and I think most of the nation, I hope. So that's it for Tofino.
I'm sure we'll all be watching her on television. Thank you for that. District of Ucluelet, Director McEwen.
Hi, thank you. At our July 9th meeting, we had several reports about our fire department. We received a report with the findings of the Fire Underwriters Survey review of our fire department. They had a fairly good score, but there were also 16 recommendations that our fire department will start ticking off. And council also approved the sole sourcing of a 2025 Fort Garry fire pumper apparatus. And so I found it really interesting to see that the fire truck purchases are now allowed under the Community Works Fund. So that's really interesting. I shared that information with my CAO just now. And also this weekend is Yuki Days, and that's our annual festival that takes place at the end of July every year. It's our 50th anniversary this weekend, so it's going to be a really big one. Friday evening, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. So hopefully some of you will make the trek over and partake in the festivities. That's it for me.
Thank you, Director McEwen. And Director Jack is not here. To Cart Nation, Director Johnson.
Afternoon. So Tokawat has recently joined the AVICC and the UBCM, so we're excited to do that. We have a music festival planned for the end of August 31st, so we should be putting out some adverts for that fairly soon. There's something else. I just can't remember now. We've got lots of capital projects happening. Outdoor workout place, playground, public washrooms, a lodge for rental. They're all happening. So hopefully by the end of summer, they'll be up and running, but I think that's it for now.
Thank you, Director Johnson. Utokasit Tribe Government, Director Coots.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not a whole lot in regards to projects or things like that, but an update on the youth treaty simulation that we had discussed one of the last times. It was a wonderful turnout. The youth really enjoyed themselves. We're really looking forward to being able to continue it on into next season and next year. We're hoping that we might even have the possibility to extend the time frame. It was a lovely 3-day excursion, but once you were in there and dealing with it day to day, we almost felt that a week probably would have done everyone much better. And selfishly, we would love to have the kids down in the village for a week. So that's incredibly exciting. And at the end of this month, we are going to be going back down there for another get together. This one is going to be much larger. We are having our annual citizens picnic. And we are looking at hopefully about, I believe, numbers are stated anywhere between 52 to 75 people. So we are incredibly happy. Those numbers do sound quite low, but for us being such a small community, those numbers are amazing. So we're looking forward to that. And that is my everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Coots. I just saw your email come through and I'll send a written invitation about the details of Celebration Life to Heather, and she could pass it on to all the staff and directors. So thank you for that reminder.
Thank you very much, Debbie.
You could with that government, Director, Mr. Angelo.
Hello. Yeah, so a couple updates we have in our government office is we are narrowing down and have some successful applicants that we may be moving forward with for our CFO and our Director of Operations search. So that's really great news. And some events coming up is we have been planning for a citizens to come back for YG Day and for Ucluelet First Nation Day. And this time we were planning it to be the 2-day event over the weekend. And hopefully that will get more of our citizens home and over here for the weekend. That'll be in September. And that is all that we have going on right now. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion that the Board of Directors receives the error reports? Moved by Director Johnson, second by Director Coots. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. No unfinished business, no late business. Now it's time for question period. Is there any questions or comments from the public? Please come on up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. Through the board, I do have a couple of comments and questions regarding the information that I received today, speaking with everyone, or listening to everyone, I should say. And I'd like to make a couple of comments. Top 19018R, Braden Rothrow Road, Sprout Lake. I think that Mike has given a good example of what the normal application process is. And I just would like to say that there's still, after 2020, when my renewal didn't go through, there's still no process for renewal of temporary use. There's no notification process still after 4 years. There's nothing whatsoever to notify the public of when their TUP has expired. I was absolutely crucified by the planning department and later the board, not everybody here, for not having my renewal in place. Absolutely crucified. I have 3 letters here that I'd like to bring to your attention. This first letter was December the 10th, 2020. My application, my TUP expired in May of 2020. This is the renewal that I have from Charity Dodds. It says temporary use permit renewal, TUP 2000-005 request. The fee for this renewal is $300. It came many months after the expiry of my renewal. And this was one of the reasons why my temporary use permit was not renewed. I paid the $300 on here and I have still never received the money back, even though the board declined my renewal. Secondly, I have several other documents here from the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Planning Department and Charity Dodds. One of the documents that I have is in respect to the fact that you declined my renewal. And the declination of that renewal was, March the 28th, 2022. One of the reasons was because I hadn't filled out a renewal form, which is not even available on the website. When I received this document here, this is one of 2 documents from Charity Dodds in respect to bylaw enforcement. It clearly states on this document that I must remove all RVs from my site by June 30th. The last paper that I've ever received from bylaw enforcement is actually this document, which is dated July the 18th, 2022. And in this document, it clearly states that all the RVs had been removed. There was no bylaw enforcement ever on my properties. None. These are the only letters that I have from bylaw enforcement. But what I do have is information after following through with the freedom of information that both bylaw as well as Mike Erg frequently attended my property without giving me any letters whatsoever regarding the number of RVs that are on my site, which I am now getting approved for 35. But all of this time, I had no idea why I couldn't have even 30 RVs on the property. I have no environmental concerns on this property. I have a proper septic system on this property. I have proper fire requirements on this property. There's no fire recommendations, even in the report that I gave you last week, or I'm sorry, the last time that I was here, the last board meeting. The $10,000 bond, there's a word, I'm not sure if anybody here knows it, but it's called obfuscate. The word means to obscure and confuse, blur, bewilder, muddle, and muddle. This report that was prepared by staff, signed by Mike Erg and signed by Daniel in regards to the Holly's property is nothing short of obfuscate. It's confusing. After all this time, I do not know what that $10,000 bond is for. You're calling it consistently a performance bond, but there is no performance that I'm supposed to do. This property has 4 criteria. That's it. Keep it simple, stupid. KISS, it's a principle in business. The simplest thing to break down my property's temporary use permit, that's taken over a year to process. Do I have proper septic? Yes, I do. Do I have water, official water from the Cherry Creek? Yes, I do. Do I have Ministry of Transportation access permit for my property? Yes, I do. Do I and will I comply with any type of safety concerns? Have I in the past? Yes, I have. And yes, I will. What is the $10,000 bond for? I have planted shrubs. You can't see them. But I spent $1,000 buying shrubs that you won't be able to see for the next 5 years. I have the most beautiful property driving into this Alberni Valley. It's well maintained. It doesn't look like a garbage dump like the Walmart property and all the RVs that are sitting there with the garbage can full. I asked this board today. I have had a rezoning application, 2 of them in here, for over 2 years. Over 2 years. I don't even have emails as to what the next part of the process is. I've asked you repeatedly to treat me with integrity, and I'm not being treated with integrity by the planning department. The board is not receiving clear information from the planning department. And I'll give you an example that just happened today. And sorry, I'm not picking on you, Mike Erg. However, you clearly stated earlier that there were that dwelling units. It was kind of very vague. It was actually sophistication that you were kind of vague about dwelling units and how long people could stay in RVs. And actually, you didn't really answer Director Boyko's question. You were very vague. The reality is this: there is no provincial legislation or federal legislation anywhere that states a person has to dwell and live in a dwelling unit. There is none. Even today, I have an MLA visiting from another community coming to one of my other properties as an example of how to do properly an extended stay program in RVs. I've had 2 or 3 MLAs come by my property in recent months to have a look at what we're doing on my other properties. And yet there's still misinformation. And that might be a personal preference that, oh, that we can only live in a building that's built by the building code. But there's actually no legislation that dictates that. And I think that everybody needs to be aware of the fact that we need to question things that are coming out of that planning department that we have. Now, I have had, like I said, rezoning applications in, and I've been bypassed now for not a few months, but for many years. I could very easily, at my property, I have existing infrastructure to easily have and house 70 people, 2 people per RV. And yet I can't get even a temporary use permit when there's only 4 criteria: septic, water, safety, and transportation. That's it. That's it. Does anybody here even know what Alex says you're waiting for from me? I've proven all those things. The reports are done. It's a $10,000 bond for something that I still don't even know what the bond is for. Because in no of the documentation are there recommendations from the Cherry Creek for water. VHA, there's no recommendations for how to do water from VHA either. So that scratches that. So it's not about putting the property back to the way it was normally, because it's always been a parking lot for the golf course, whether it was a grass parking lot or now it's a gravel parking lot. I'm not building any buildings. I don't require any building code things. I'm asking you, and I'm asking this board, maybe you have to go in camera, but I think that this board needs to make a decision, because this is setting a really dangerous precedent. If the planning department is not using the legislation properly, the Local Government Act. It sets out very clearly how it's supposed to be used, and you are not using it correctly. You're using it to fine me.
Point of order on that. There are many accusations that you're making.
I am.
And I will guarantee you that every step has been legally vetted by the ACRD. Quite often because of the comments that come forward. And I will absolutely guarantee that we are following the Local Government Act, that there are very strict building code criteria that have to be followed. It is not fictitious. It is something that we are bound to. And so I would say there are numerous things that you are bringing up at this point, which are incorrect, and that I actually would love to debate, but this is not the forum.
May I make the comment that Mr. Sailand is supposed to speak through the chair to the person here, please?
I just want to make a correction to something you said earlier as well, Heather. You said that you were asked to remove the trailers because your temporary use permit did not get renewed. You were asked to move your trailers because you exceeded the number of permitted trailers on your property through your temporary use permit.
Actually, just a correction to that point. I agree that I had more RVs than were initially allowed. And I consistently was working through with the planning department asking why I couldn't have more RVs. And I asked that question over and over and over again. And many times I did not receive an answer as to why I couldn't have more RVs. And it turns out in this new temporary use application that I've now brought forward, I can have more RVs on a temporary use permit. So when I agree with you, absolutely, but that's not actually the reason why it was because of 200 hours of bylaw enforcement, which I only have 3 letters, and that's not even bylaw enforcement because I actually didn't have a bylaw enforcement issue. I never had a letter once prior to any board meeting that I had exceeded and that was going to be a problem from here. So I hear what you're saying, Deb, but like unfortunately, that's not all accurate either.
I think if you have any specific concerns about your working with your planning department, specific staff members, that needs to be dealt with between you and the CAO.
I don't have any problems specifically with any specific planning department. What I have issue with is the tasks and how everything is being managed. I don't believe that my applications should be, I don't know, pulled over. Like why does it take over 3 years for my application? Why do I not receive any emails from staff on certain conditions? Sometimes I get really great information from staff. Other times I receive nothing. So I do take task with the information flow. I take task with the fact that sometimes it's inaccurate information that the board receives from planning and staff. And I was only showing an example of the fact that there was misinformation in regards to RVs and dwelling units. As I said, I was not singling out a specific staff member except for that comment that was made earlier on in the board meeting.
Great, thank you. I think we're all very aware of all your concerns from you being up here and through the report from staff. So if you have anything else that you haven't touched on, please do it now. Otherwise, we'll carry on.
Once again, I make 2 requests. One, for the $10,000 bond that is not a bond, it's actually being used as a fine to be removed from my application. The second request that I have is that my old rezoning applications, both of which have been subjected or have been gone to the planning department many months, years ago now, be at least attended to and move forward. If those rezoning applications were moved forward, I wouldn't have to be here talking to you about a temporary use permit. I would be talking about a rezoning application. And it would help resolve an issue on the properties that have been existing for years as to their zoning and the convolutedness of that zoning. So I'm asking the board, one, to remove the $10,000 bond. It's not warranted. There's no justification for $10,000. I don't know how $10,000 was even come up with. It's very random. It's just an amount, and it couldn't possibly be for revegetating the property if the property needed to be revegetated. There's no buildings to take down. I don't understand what that bond would be for.
That was an option earlier during your report from staff, and that wasn't accepted by the board. It wasn't moved by the board. So right now we've just accepted the report.
And I guess that's my point, is that I'm asking, because that report is obfuscated. It's confusing. When I was here in March, I asked very specifically what the bond was for. Is it for landscaping? Do you require me to go out and get a landscape architect to come and tell you that it's going to be $10,000 to put up some shrubs so that I know that if I don't do that, that you guys have the money to then actually do the landscape? Is that what it's for? Because the landscaping that I've done so far is about $1,000 worth of planting shrubs. The one side of the property on Arden Road, it's 30 feet of natural vegetation. I'm not going to, I think it would look horrible if I was to fence it. In the wintertime, because it's natural vegetation, the leaves fall off the trees. And when my neighbor sent you what it looked like many months ago, he zoomed in and he looked through branches on a tree. Now for the last 8 months, it's like full of life and tons of bushes. I don't want to cut that stuff down to put up a fence. You won't see the landscaping that I did on the highway because of the way the highway is. The trees that are there that are now that are obscuring the buildings and things like that are many years old. So although I put the fencing there, like the landscaping there, it's gonna be many years before you see it. I can't fence it to obscure the view of my property because of the topography.
Okay, thank you, Heather. I think we've all heard you. And at the next board meeting, if a member wants to bring that on the agenda, they certainly have that option. Thank you.
Respectfully.
And I just want to advise that we have no questions received via email, but we do have one question received via Zoom. I'll just read it out. It's from Mike Lisowski. For all those directors who voted in favor of the cell tower location, you need to ask yourself if you want a tower in your backyard. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further anything on the agenda, I would like to make a motion to recess the regular board of directors meeting in order to conduct the regional hospital district meeting. Moved by Director Coots, seconded by Director Cote. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, I'd like to call the order the July 24th Hospital District Board of Directors meeting. I'd like to recognize that we're conducting this meeting on the unceded territories of the Shuswap First Nations, and we're grateful for the opportunity to do so. We also have directors calling in from other territories, and I'd like to acknowledge those nations and express our gratitude and our respect. We have an agenda in front of us. Is there any additions from directors? Is there any additions from the corporate officer?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Could I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Moved by Director Johnson, seconded by Director Spiro. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. No declarations or conflicts of interest. We have minutes from the Board of Directors meeting held on June the 12th, 2024. Is any errors or omissions? Seeing none, get a motion that the minutes of the Alberni Clayoquot Regional Hospital District Board of Directors held on June 12th, 2024 be adopted. Moved by Director Johnson, second by Director Coots. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. No petitions or delegations or presentations, no correspondence for action. Correspondence for information. We have a few items from Island Health. Island Health announces the 2024-2025 Community Wellness Grant recipients. Simple, Safe, Effective Island Health Grant supports washroom sensor project for Vancouver Island libraries and tips for a safe and sound summer festival season. The motion, this correspondence be received for information. Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Coots. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. No requests for decisions and bylaws. We have reports. Banfield Health Center Director Beckett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to do something a little bit different as opposed to just, talking about stats or staff. I'm going to reflect on a call that came in on the weekend, and it involved a very close friend of mine who suffered a stroke, and his wife called me at 5 a.m. to say that her husband had suffered a stroke and asked me to come to the house. And the house is very close to our health center. And when I arrived, shortly after the phone call, I met the nurse who had walked over from the residence. And we very quickly had a discussion. He was going back to the health clinic to get some equipment, and I went in to comfort my friend. Short time afterwards, very short time afterwards, 4 volunteer first responders from the Banfield Volunteer Fire Department arrived and did an amazing job assessment of my friend, the patient, and with the nurse and the first responders, packaged my friend up, got him into the health clinic. And as I walked in with his wife, they were on the phone to the ER to discuss the situation with a physician. And long story short, within about 3/4 of an hour, the helicopter was en route. The air ambulance was en route. And by about 7 o'clock in the morning, he was arriving at Victoria General Hospital. Prognosis is very good for my friend, which is a wonderful sidebar of the story. But I want to share that with you because we hear lots of negative health care stories, but what an amazing combination of our volunteers responding, amazing staff at the health clinic, and then provincially moving my friend to additional care down in Victoria. So I just thought I'd share that from an operational standpoint, and for me to see firsthand it working as well as it was. I just accolades to everybody involved, volunteers, staff, and at the provincial level. That's my report. Thank you.
That's a fantastic outcome, Director Beckett. Thank you for sharing that. Alberni Quequot Continuing Care Society, Director Siga. You're muted, Director Siga.
Thank you very much. There are changes in staffing that are, and it's progressing very well. And I look forward to working with the new staff that's coming on board. Thank you.
Thank you. West Coast Native Healthcare Society, Director Cote.
Thank you. I think they're just having their AGM last week. I missed it. So no report. They're doing well. Thank you.
Thank you. Tofino General Hospital, Director Steer. Are you still on the line? I don't see you, so we'll move on. Alberni Quequot Health Network, Director Cote.
Thank you. They are on recess for the summer, so no report.
West Coast General Hospital. As the chair of the hospital board on June the 22nd, I attended the Port Alberni Health Summit along with Director Siga. A group of doctors hosted the event to talk about the medical crisis in Port Alberni and some possible solutions. Two priorities that they came up with during the meeting was housing and childcare for medical personnel. Lori Kamiri, Executive Director from Community Futures, is also working with this group of doctors on a very exciting project. And she is going to be coming to our August meeting in order to present about the project and share it with you. So there will be a follow-up meeting of this group in September. So I'll give you updates after the meeting. Director Cote.
Thank you. I attended that also. So did Marcy DeWitt from the Health Network, and did a presentation as well with Director Siga. It was very interesting.
Okay, can I motion the Regional Hospital Board of Directors receive reports A through G? Moved by Director Coots, seconded by Director Spiro. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. No unfinished business, no late business. Any questions online, Heather?
Give me 1 second. No emails. And no questions in Zoom. Thank you.
Could I get a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Director Sparrows, second by Director Coots. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay. So now I would like to, do I get a motion to reconvene?
Yes, please.
Yes, could I get a motion to reconvene to our regular board meeting? Moved by Director Johnson, second by Director Coots. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. So now I need a motion to close the meeting to the public as per the Community Charter, Section 91C, Labor Relations or Other Employee Relations. Moved by Director Coots, second by Director Sparrow. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried.